Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another Warhammer the Old World tournament report. The Dwarves are back on the table with an attempt to bust the meta with lines. Surely no one's ever tried that before. Okay, let's dive in. This is Rise of the Chaos Champions, sold out event from the TSN arena, which means 24 players, and some pretty hardcore players there as well. Some very high level players and some new players attending their first event combined. So, what do I decide to bring in the face of that? There is my entire army. Actually, I've just realised in this lovely shot you can't even see my general who's hiding at the back behind the Thane on shield bearers. So, the thinking behind the list first of all. In all the game systems I play, generally the most important thing to me is that all my units look cool. And then after that, I'll try and win games, and if some of those units are doing really well, I'll maybe add more of them in there. But the idea with this list, coolness is going out the window. I think all my dwarves are cool enough anyway, so I'm just putting out the list that I think has the highest chance of winning games against the things that are going to be difficult for dwarves generally. That is the goal, so it's just a win at all costs Linehammer list. With that in mind, let's go through my characters first of all, because there's a few. Let's see if we can actually find a picture of my general hiding at the back. So, no, there isn't even a picture of my own general. So it's a little engineer dude. You can just about see him there, actually, with his mighty hammer. So that is my general there. It's Burlock Daminson, the Master Engineer of Doom. And what does he bring to the table? Well, first of all, the unit he's in does not suffer a penalty for shooting at long range, which is pretty much the entire reason he's in the list. He also acts as an engineer, obviously, so he can help out war machines with rerolling misfires if he's close enough. He's also leadership 10, which is handy to have for a general as well. The cheapest source of leadership 10 you can get in the dwarf list, so that's handy. And he has a decent close combat profile, but there is a chance he can punch himself in the face and hurt himself when he swings his big, ridiculous weapon. His shooting attack isn't that great, it's only 10-inch range. So, what about my other characters? We have got a Thane on shield bearers, so this is the BSB, and he's got the Master Rune of Grungni on the banner for the ward save of 5+ for any unit he's in. He's also got the Master Rune of Gromril on his armour, so a 2-up save that can't be improved further, and Rune of Fury to give the great weapon 1 extra attack and to give him a magical weapon. So, the reason I want to give out as many magical weapons as possible is because the Green Knight is bound to be here. You can't go to an event without seeing the Green Knight. You'll probably see multiple of them if you're unlucky. So the fact that he can pop up, charge whatever he wants from an inch away sometimes, and then if you're not magical, you can't hurt him. So there is part 1 of trying to counter the Green Knight, a magic weapon on the Thane, who's obviously on shield bearers, so he's pretty survivable as well. Then we have also got another Thane with the Handgun of Doom. So it's the standard loadout for the Thane, which is the Rune of Rapid Fire, the Rune of Accuracy, and the third one is Master Rune of Bursting Flame. There we go. So it's 2 shots, always hits on 3s, and they explode into multiple hits with a handgun. I've been toying with the crossbow on this loadout, which is better against certain things, better against skirmishers that can maybe fall back out of your range, and better against any army that just wants to stay far away from you. But I do miss the guaranteed AP1 of the handgun, so I'm sticking with the handgun, and it's consistent with the range of like a torpedo in the Iron Drake unit, so I don't feel like the crossbow is going to be too big of a miss there. We've also got a runesmith with 3 runes of spell breaking, so can shut down 3 spells assuming he's in range to use it. He's only 18-inch range, that's my only anti-magic at all. Other than that, he's purely in there to give out the extra armor bane to the unit he's in and to give them flaming attacks, which might be useful, or could be a hindrance in some instances, because certain units have a ward save against flaming attacks, for example Iron Drakes. Then, oh by the way, because the points are so tight on this list, it's exactly 2,000, I can't drop anything at my core, so the runesmith does not have a shield. Controversial, I know. Then we've got 2 mercenary Doomseekers, and most of the time I was actually remembering to roll on the mercenary table to see if they need to roll on the table, actually. There's a little test first. So, when I remembered, then they didn't fail. So no weird mercenary things came up. And most of the time I just forgot that they are mercenaries because they're just dwarves. The other thing I forgot is related to the Doomseekers as well, because one of them, this one here, has been kitted out with the Master Rune of Swiftness, so always strikes first. This one here has been kitted out with 3 runes of speed, so he's base initiative 6. The idea is that they get to go first, whatever happens, so they'll maximise their output before they get stomped. And that increases their cost as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because if the enemy kill them, they don't score points for them. As long as I can get them killed, certain enemies would be able to avoid them, which is risky, because as it stands, when the game begins, I'm already losing because the Doomseekers are alive. So worst case scenario, they just run around the difficult terrain, try and fall down a rabbit hole, which is apparently, that counts as an honourable death in Warhammer. As long as you die, it doesn't matter how. If you fall over and break your ankle and die very slowly of an infection, then that still counts. So 2 Doomseekers in there. Onto the core. We have 1 unit in core, which is a gigantic blob of 31 rangers, which will occasionally be deployed in a super long line. So if anyone finds the idea of 31 units, 31 models wide in a single unit, then feel free to avert your eyes whenever I mention the rangers. Obviously don't stop watching the video. I wouldn't tell you to do that, that would be wild. So they have great weapons, shields, heavy armour, throwing axes, all the usual stuff. They've got full command, and they've got the... let's see, have I forgotten which rune I've put on my rangers? The Rune of Battle, there you go. So the idea is that this unit, if they were to get attacked by something like, let's say, the Green Knight, they have a little bit more static combat resolution from the Rune of Battle on the banner. So that would help them out in defeating something like that when they don't have any magical attacks themselves, although they'll probably, if the Green Knight's around, they're likely to have a character in there who can help them out. So, then we've got, into the special section, we've got 2 gyrocopters with the steam guns, so just the cheapest possible loadout. And they can be used for multiple purposes. They can either hunt stuff down at the back of the table that I can't chase with anything else, or they can go out to block big units, kind of redirect things out the way a bit. So that's the dream for them. If there's anything they can actually kill, they'll surely go after that as well, look for flanks on enemies perhaps. The grudge throwers, 2 of those. This one here, the silver one, has the Rune of Forging on it. Just 1. So we've got 1 engineer who's hiding behind my Thane there, Burlockson, or Burlock Daminson should I say, and then 2 grudge throwers who can be helped by the engineer's presence, potentially at some point. Then, into rare, we've got 18 Iron Drakes, with full command, Trollhammer Torpedo, Musician, and Standard Bearer, with the Master Rune of Hesitation. So if you charge into the Iron Drakes, you will not get impact hits. You won't be able to use lances, or any of those horrible things that normally skewer the Iron Drakes, sometimes before they even get to do anything. So, you would still get your initiative bonus, but you're not having your impact hits. And that's the most important thing. I don't want them to get killed by being charged by, let's say, 5 different chariots all at once. So no impact hits for you. So, potentially, if I stretch out both these units super wide, we can fill out most of the table with a big long line of dwarves, which obviously protects against flanks. And it depends on the enemy, though. If you're up against Bretonnians, for example, with multiple units of Pegasus Knights, going super wide can sometimes be a hindrance because you're letting more of them get in contact with you and then more units being in contact with you in general, and they can definitely work towards wiping out a front rank. They may struggle against 31 rangers no matter how many Pegasus Knights you've brought. And then obviously they're hitting back with great weapons, and then whichever characters I've got in there as well are helping with that, either the Runesmith giving them extra armor bane and flaming attacks, or the Thane who's got his great weapon to hit with as well. We've got the Thane with the handgun who can maybe be in there to add stand and shoot to one of these units as well. So lots of stand and shoot power, and if you charge into them, the Rangers will definitely try and kick your butt. The Iron Drakes can certainly try. They're not that great at fighting, but they're not poor either, because they are strength 4. They've got good full plate armour, Gromril armour, so they're pretty survivable in a fight as well. What am I hoping to avoid then? I still don't know how this would do against the super tooled up Chaos Dragons of Doom with 3 different saves. Or even like an Orc Wyvern with 3 different saves. I don't know how that would go, because I don't know whether I would just get enough wounds through onto them. 31 wide Rangers would possibly give them pause for thought, because I could actually score a fair number of wounds against them then with that many attacks coming back, so maybe they would consider that that's not the best thing to do. The Iron Drakes, would you charge into them with a big Chaos Dragon or something like that? Because you would be eating a stand and shoot, which is more likely to wound you than the Rangers are, because of the higher strength of the weapons. So I'm not sure how it would do against the big, terrifying flyers, so we'll see if we face any of those. Grudge Throwers are slightly better at taking them down than Cannons are, because they've got the more AP and the more guaranteed wounds, because it's D3 plus 1, so they're also good in anti-war machine rolls as well. We have got Croesus and Giovanni in the chat. Good evening. Goblin Green basing for the win. If you're not inspiring 90s nostalgia, why are you even playing Old World, is my question to you. So that's what I'm going for. What do I think would be great matchups for me? Anything that's really slow and has to walk towards me very slowly and just get shot to bits is obviously a really bad matchup for my opponent, because I've got so many guns with decent range. Let's see, lists with lots of medium or small units of knights, perhaps, because I think Iron Drakes and Rangers would make mincemeat of those. So yeah, I don't think knights would have a good time against this list, because I've got a lot of AP, a lot of armor bane, and good ranged output. So let's talk about cheating now as well. For the entire event, I was cheating in 2 different ways with the Doomseekers. One of them is to my own detriment, and one of them is a benefit to me. So first of all, for the entire event until Game 5, I overlooked the fact that their weapon runes should have actually removed their AP. So I was playing them as having AP 1. However, worse than that, against me, I was accidentally playing them for the whole event as Strength 4, when they're actually Strength 5. So plenty of times when they go into something that they would normally be wounding on 2s or 3s, they were actually wounding it on 1 worse. So I think the rule that I was playing wrong to my own detriment is actually worse, because I would rather have the strength than the AP, I think, with these guys. I think it's because the gyrocopters are the only other thing that has impact hits, and they are Strength 4, so I'm so used to impact hits being Strength 4, so I think when these guys go in, Strength 4 as well. But if I actually looked at their profile once in a while, I would see that they are actually Strength 5. So I'll say that that cancels out, so the cheating is cancelled out by my accidental cheating in my opponent's favour as well. So let's have some close-ups of the lovely Iron Drakes. So 18 of those, the Doomseekers. I'm not a big fan of the painting the skin like half blue or anything like that. I think they look cool enough as they are. There is the Thane on the shield bearers. Lovely lines. And into game 1. So this is open battle, and it's a dwarf civil war already. I can, spoiler alert, reveal that there are 6 dwarf armies out of the 24 at this event. So it's very likely I'm going to be playing dwarves at least once, if not more than that. So, what do we have in this enemy list? Let me pull that up right now. So, I started off on table 2. There we go. So, this enemy dwarven list contains... let me get some close-ups for you. We have got a human hand, but we do have an Anvil of Doom there. I think most of these, if not all, are they Highland miniatures or are they something else? I can't remember what my opponent said. They look like Highland to me. We've got this guy, the Anvil of Doom, with a Rune of Spellbreaking. Then there is a Dwarf Engineer with the Master Rune of Bursting Flame and the Rune of Rapid Fire. So the only thing it's missing is accuracy, and that is the Engineer right there, in amongst the War Machines. There is a Thane, who is... I think it's the Battle Standard Bearer in this unit over here. So that Thane has the Master Rune of Gromril and Master Rune of Swiftness. So strike first, 2-up save. And is that the Battle Standard Bearer? No, it's not. There's 2. There's another Thane in there. Yes, the Battle Standard Bearer is the one that has the, let's see, Rune of Fire and Rune of Striking. So there's multiple Thanes out there. Is there actually... There's two Thanes, yeah, and then there's the Engineer with the gun. So it's like the slightly less good version of the Thane with a gun, because it doesn't have accuracy. So occasionally you will actually be hitting on 2s with it, because you are an Engineer, but that would be very rarely. Okay, then we've got War Machines. We've got 2 bolt throwers, one of them with the skewering rune, obviously, the auto-include on a bolt thrower. We've got a cannon as well. And that is the extent of the War Machines. Let me see if the cannon has anything on it. The cannon has the Master Rune of Immolation, so if you fight it in close combat, it'll blow up on you, which is very nice. There is a unit of Slayers, very unusual. You don't see them very often, not seen as a competitive choice. So it is a unit of 10 Slayers with additional hand weapons. If we go back to... Where's the core section now? Oh, there we go. So we've got Dwarf Warriors, which are right here. That is 16 Dwarf Warriors with great weapons and shields. A veteran with the Rune of Striking. So you'll see a lot of little magical attacks sprinkled about in armies, and I think that is mostly because of the Green Knight. So you've just got something to threaten him with, is the deal with that. Then there is a Ranger unit, and a Thunderer unit, and a Thunderer unit. So we've got some Rangers which are actually down here in my flank. That is 5 Rangers. I think those ones are actually in the rare section. So there's a unit of 10 Rangers as well, which are over on the other side. I don't think they actually appeared in the photo because they're so wide out on the flank. Let me see. I think they're up here. This may have been taken before they were placed. There's definitely 10 Rangers around here somewhere. And then we've got the Thunderers, which are there. Do we have 2 units of Iron Drakes? So those are actually the Iron Drakes, which are there, and then the Thunderers are on the hill. 2 units on the hill of Thunderers, and they are 8 in each one, with a veteran. So the Iron Drake units do have a torpedo and the usual stuff you'd expect. There's some Cinderblast bombs in there as well. How do I feel about this matchup? I feel pretty good, because I think, if we go back to a wide shot, if we just look at it, points denial is important in this game, and I think my army is better kitted out for points denial. It's going to be very difficult for this dwarf army, I think, to kill 31 Rangers full of characters or 18 Iron Drakes. I think it's much easier for me to kill like 8 Thunderers or 10 Iron Drakes or 10 Slayers. So I think that gives me the edge there. You really have to kill this mega unit if you want to win in this situation, I think. And those are the 2 combat units out there. So they're obviously planning to snake their way around here, which is probably better than just launching yourself straight forward into all this gunfire. But I still think it's an uphill struggle for this dwarf list. I think I definitely have the edge. And in the War Machine on War Machine battle, the Grudge Throwers are better than cannons, because on average 1 hit kills a cannon, whereas a cannon takes 2 hits to kill a Grudge Thrower. So let's go into turn 1. So you can see, here we go, I actually get the first turn. So the Gyrocopter immediately, because I made my little vanguard move up here, charged into those scouts, those scouting Rangers. So there's 5 of them. I don't think they have great weapons either, so that's why I decided it was a good idea to charge them. The Doom Seekers have moved forward, and then my huge amount of Rangers, who do have Burlock and a Runesmith and the Thane in there, and my other Thane with the handgun has just popped out of the unit so he can target a different unit. So all of that shooting manages to kill 5 Thunderers, which is okay as a start. Nice paint jobs on these. The other Gyrocopter is running off around the side to flank the enemy and not get shot by Iron Drakes, because that's just easy points for them to score. My big unit of Iron Drakes are moving up a little bit towards this dangerous terrain, which you might think is risky, but I don't think I'm going to lose that many to it. And I want to be in the terrain just so I've got cover when I'm being shot back at, and then I can shoot towards the enemy from like here in a big line. That's the plan, because I haven't got a lot of space to work with, because I wanted the Rangers on the hill to maximise how many can shoot, so some of them won't be able to shoot at the back there. And I've got the heroes in there as well, so all the heroes piled up into the Ranger unit. Doom Seekers, oh, those are the other Rangers. Yeah, I just couldn't see them because they're actually in the trees. The trees haven't been taken off because they can physically be placed there. We've got Mithridas in the chat. Good evening. So, you can see that one of my grudge throwers has been turned round because it misfired, and it's now not allowed to fire until... and it can't fire next turn either. Turn 1 for the enemy coming up after this. So, the gyrocopter and those rangers did nothing to each other, so they're just locked in combat there. And what do I think the enemy is going to try and do here? What would you target with your cannon? I think you have to go for the grudge throwers. Because what are you going to kill? You're going to kill 2 rangers or 1 iron drake a turn, which I don't think really achieves anything. The bolt throwers, what would you go for? You don't want to be targeting doom seekers with bolt throwers. They're very unlikely to hit. So maybe a bolt thrower would be slightly more suited to skewering a couple of rangers a turn. Might be worth using them for that if you can't get a good shot against the grudge throwers, because they're certainly going to have cover looking at this, because I've got some doom seekers out there. So yeah, it's a difficult one, because whatever you move forward, any of these small units are a liability. Because any of those that I can completely kill off, that just gives me points. So I'd be tempted, this unit of 3, at the moment I'm not scoring anything for them, I'd be tempted to like move them away, because 3 of them aren't going to do much, and they're just going to give away points when they die. So, into the enemy turn, and we've got a full-on advance. The Slayers have moved at quite a hefty rate. I think they were conveyed with the anvil as well, which is why they've gone so far. They've got an extra move out of it, because they want to come in here and help the rangers against the gyrocopter. And the anvil strikes, and I've actually got my rangers in range and view of the anvil at the moment, just about, so it does manage to kill 3 with the magic missile. But then I remembered, oh yeah, I've got Rune of Grungni in there, so 2 of them come back to life because I rolled my ward saves. Then all the war machines take aim, and the cannon actually puts a wound onto the grudge thrower. So it manages to hit it, but just does the 1 wound, which is the downfall of cannons. Not very good guaranteed wounds. You can see one of the Doom Seekers has been shot down, I think by these Iron Drakes. So that's 1 dead, and then the other one gets shot by the Rangers as well. So both Doom Seekers are dead, so they're not giving away any points, but obviously they're not able to kill anything now because they're dead. So ideally I would have liked to have them to perform some charges next turn. Okay, so not much accomplished there. Doom Seeker's gone, but I'm not too concerned about that at this stage. The Rangers' output hasn't diminished because it was the back rank that lost a model from it. And going into my turn 2. So, what am I going to do? If we look at the wide shot, what's the plan for this turn? So, obviously, Grudge Thrower going to try and kill a war machine. I'm going to try and shoot up some of these other units, depending what I can reach with the Rangers. The Iron Drakes are going to move up into the woods and then start shooting the enemy Iron Drakes, probably, which isn't the best use for them because you give away... You've got flaming attacks, so you're giving them their ward save when you target other Iron Drakes, but my unit is so much bigger than theirs that I think I'll win that battle overall, over some time. I'm feeling pretty confident at this stage, though. I don't see anything that would suggest my units are in big danger yet. So, here's my turn 2. The Rangers, and the Iron Drakes, and the Gunthane whittle down the Thunderers and on this hill, so there's only 2 left in that unit, and the other unit's been wiped out. They pass their test, though. The gyrocopter is sneaking behind enemy lines because it's a menace to society. The other one actually loses combat. It takes a wound against the Rangers this time and just backs up 2 inches. The Iron Drakes kill 3 enemy Iron Drakes, it looks like there. And my Grudge Thrower didn't hit anything. So, not bad. Killed quite a few Dwarves now. And it's looking like what I was saying about these units being a liability is kind of where the game may be decided at this stage. Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to kill any of the big expensive stuff, because this unit here is quite expensive. That's got the BSB in there, I think. Other than that, the anvil, I don't know if I'd be able to kill that, so it is just going to be cheap stuff that I'm mopping up. Turn 2 for the enemy. So, the Slayers charge in, and with their combined might with the Rangers, they both manage to kill the gyrocopter this turn. No, they don't, I lied. I fled with the gyrocopter and landed right on the edge of the table, so I haven't quite died. And yeah, there it is. Flees all the way down here. So just enough space for it to actually land there. because it had to go beyond this piece of terrain. Thankfully, I'd left just enough space there for it to land beyond the grudge thrower without touching the edge of the table. And not much is accomplished by the evil enemy dwarves in this turn. You can see a couple of iron drakes have been taken off from shooting, but not much at all. Oh, you can also see the anvil's line of sight to this unit has now been blocked by the advancing iron drakes as well. So when I saw the anvil out there, my first thought was, I'm not going to be able to stop any of the spells, but I'm also not planning on moving forwards anyway, so I wouldn't have been able to. And I'm thinking, I'd really want the anvil kind of central. If you're worried about it being killed, that's the place to put it out there, because I'm not going to be able to hit it with much. I'd have to get very lucky with the grudge throwers, but I don't know if it's going to be able to contribute that much other than boosting the movement and pushing these guys along a bit. For the magic missile, which is quite scary, you would need it closer. So, turn 3 for me. What does the shooting accomplish this turn? All my various shooting attacks. So we've whittled down this unit of iron drakes a bit more. The gyrocopter has got in here as well. And the other unit of iron drakes have now taken some casualties. So at this point I'm realising actually it's a bad idea having my runesmith in the ranger unit. Because of the flaming attacks I gave them ward saves and killed less than I should have done there probably. So the runesmith is going to bail out of that unit at some point now that I've realised it's not a good idea. Grudge thrower there is now allowed to shoot after misfiring round 1 and the other one. Take aim and knock down an enemy bolt thrower. I think the cannon was out of sight, but I think I could see the bolt thrower with one of them. Yeah, I think this one could. I can't see the cannon, so I went for the direct hit and took out a bolt thrower. So that's nice. Whittled down various other units, and I still don't see where a big threat is coming from in my direction. Because I think even if these two units make it into combat, I think this big ranger unit of Doom with all the heroes in there can definitely hold its own against them. So I'm feeling pretty confident. Margin of victory is important though, because it pushes up your differential, which is useful for ties in the table. I think it goes on wins first, then draws, then points differential. So, turn 3 for the evil dwarves. And they're fully on the advance now, trying to get to me as fast as possible. And these two thunderers turn round to shoot the gyrocopter, and the iron drakes turn round to shoot the gyrocopter, who's wondering why he signed up for this job now. He's probably going to die. So, the Slayers, I think they get conveyed by the anvil, which is how they've got so far again. And the various shooting attacks kill a couple of rangers, and not much else. The gyrocopter doesn't get hurt. So, at this point, the one thing I'm thinking about is this unit in my flank with the rangers? If it is, do I want to reform the unit to expand the ranks that way a bit to keep them in the front? Or do I want to shuffle them sideways or backwards to keep them in the front? Or do I want to wheel a bit to keep them in the front? But as it turns out, I think they're already in the front because I get the little angle out, and so I don't need to move them, which is handy. So the gyrocopter, which is... this is the one that fled. So it rallies, flies over here and scorches some of the Slayers, who also take other shooting attacks. I don't think it was just the gyro that shot them. I think the Thane with the handgun shot them as well. The Rangers took fire at the Iron Drakes, and I think, is the Runesmith still in there? Yes, he hasn't bailed out yet, so I thought I'll give it one more try with the Runesmith in there. And didn't kill many of them. This gyrocopter, by the way, which is fleeing. So, let me go back and talk about that. Okay, no, it's charging, that's the thing. So I charged into these guys. I think they fled and I caught them. So they fled like all the way over here, I think is what happened. Okay, that's either that or I overran after killing them. I can't remember which it was. It's probably an overrun, actually, looking at the distance. I think I charged in, killed them, and then overran that distance. Because if I'd managed to overrun into the Iron Drakes, that would have locked them down for a turn, which is nice, but I didn't quite reach them. Yeah, so I think it was an overrun. It's also blocking line of sight a bit from the enemy war machines. Enemy Iron Drakes over there getting whittled down further by my superior numbers of Iron Drakes. And this big unit of warriors is really the only dangerous unit, but again, I don't think it's going to stack up well here, sadly, for the enemy evil dwarves. So, well, in the enemy turn, the Slayers decide, you know what, we might as well just throw ourselves in and see what happens. They throw themselves into the Rangers and get killed by the stand and shoot, as you would expect. The Dwarf Warriors march their way up here, so they are now a threat. We're going to have to do something about them. And the Gyrocopter gets shot by everything around here, as you'd also expect. So, now that unit probably is in the flank, so I have to do something about that. So we'll see what I do in my turn. On to turn... yes, that was turn 4. So I just took a picture of the turn dice multiple times to remind me to put it before the pictures of the turn and then forgot anyway. So turn 5 for me. So the Iron Drakes finish off the enemy Iron Drakes. The Gun Thane and the Gyrocopter blast away at the Dwarf Warriors, take out a good few of them. And the Rangers, if we look at where they were up to the edge of the hill, I think, almost. So do I back the Rangers up a bit? I think I walk them back a bit, make the charge harder, and also it puts them in the front. So I can stand and shoot, and it's just better to be in the front anyway. So then I shoot the Iron Drakes over there and kill another one, but it's obviously not as effective because they're ponderous and I had to move the unit. So before we go into turn 5 for the enemy, it's really not looking good for the evil dwarves at this stage. So they do make their charge, but they lose 4 from the stand and shoot on the way in. Then the cannon, one of the bolt throwers was also killed last turn as well. I think I landed another rock on it, which would have been that one, because this one has misfired and is now facing the wrong way again. But then into the enemy turn, the cannon actually finishes off this grudge thrower. So some good points scored there. The Rangers in the woods try and kill the grudge thrower, but they don't kill it, which is good. My Thane on the shield bearers gets into a challenge with the enemy BSB. And yeah, the enemy get annihilated. And they flee and I catch them. So yeah. Very unhealthy position for the enemy evil dwarves now. And in my turn 6, I just start blasting, finish off those Iron Drakes. And yeah, not much else. And then my opponent's turn 6, very uneventful, just a load of shooting that does not do anything. Nothing significant. So, it's a nice juicy win for the Linehammer dwarves in round 1. Obviously it feels bad to defeat enemy dwarves, because they're not really enemies, are they? We're all dwarven bearded cousins at the end of the day. So, into round 2. 1 win in the bag. We've got to go for it in the chat. Good evening. So, in round 2, let me grab my opponent's list here on the app. So, this is one of the lists that I was concerned about, actually. And this is Wolves of the Sea. So, first of all, in the pre-game, there is the Wolves of the Sea can issue a challenge to one of your champions. If you don't accept the challenge, then they get to go first. If you do accept, then the winner of the challenge goes first. However, I kind of misunderstood the rules of the duel, as it were. So I thought that if you accept the challenge, then you would then still have a roll-off for first turn. And it doesn't matter if you win or lose the challenge. So had I known that going in, I wouldn't have thrown my Ranger champion into a challenge, because he was almost certainly going to die. And that means the enemy get the first turn. So I should have just given them the first turn and not sacrificed a unit champion. I think there is some rule in there on how that interacts with the Bretonian prayer, but I can't remember what it is. Obviously not relevant to dwarves. So this is Mountain Pass, so you can't flee off the edge. And I'm deploying far away from the enemy. I've got my Iron Drakes with the Thane BSB up there. I've got Doom Seekers out the front. Gyrocopters are hanging back. You'll understand why when I get to my opponent's list. Grudge Throwers at the back. Again, behind my lines, you'll understand why when we get to the opponent's list. And a big old line of Rangers. Not super wide. I could have gone wider, but let's have a look at the opposing list. Oh, by the way, the Runesmith and the General are both in the Rangers unit. Okay, so the Wolves of the Sea. This is the big scary Death Star. So it's a unit of Skin Wolves, and who is in there? There is a Sorcerer Lord who is 365 points. So he's level 4 on a demonic mount. with Spell Familiar, so picking your spells, because this is Warhammer, so people don't roll for their spells, they just pick them automatically. And there's an Exalted Champion in there as well, who's also on a Demonic Mount, who is just good at fighting, has Crown of Everlasting Conquest, Enchanting Aura, and it's just a bit of a fight beast. And the Skin Wolves, let me have a quick look at them. So I think it's the unit of 7 of them. And they're obviously good because 322 points for 7. They're pretty tasty. There is another unit of 4 of them, which is down here. In the core section, or is there another character actually? Let me see. Nope. Core section, we've got 4 lots of Marauder Tribe Berserkers who are ambushers, potentially. So, this is why I've put my units into the corner and on the back. I don't want anything appearing behind me. I don't want to have to turn around when there's some really fast units coming towards me, because the spellcaster has battle magic, which is going to provide them with the ability to move again in the magic, in the conveyance manner. So, then there are units of Marauder Horsemen. There are 2 of those, 6 in each one. They're the slightly more expensive of the chaff units, at 101 points each. Then there are 3 units of 5 Chaos Warhounds, which are 30 points, so just total nothing units. If they die, who cares? So, 2 of the ambusher units are not put into ambush, they're put out on the table. And the way this is described to me is just Warhammer nonsense, like my stupidly long line. This is another stupid thing where you've got 2 skirmishing units interlaced with each other so that they both get cover. Which is obviously a complete nonsense, but so are lines, so are big flyers with 3 saves. There's just lots of nonsense out there, and this is one of them. Let's see, we've got Saurus Blood in the chat. The rule interaction is that Bretonnians always get the blessing even if they get to go first. Nice. Okay, so then we've got a couple of big horrible beasties, gigantic spawn of chaos. These are the things that I'm thinking I'm going to be able to aim my grudge throwers at and hopefully hit. They've got a big base, so even if it scatters a little bit, then it'll still land on them, is the plan with that. And here's the challenge that I put my Ranger Champion into, foolishly, not understanding the rules of engagement entirely. So he obviously gets killed, and my opponent then gets to go first. So, I'm not too sad about my opponent going first, weirdly enough, because my shooting is going to be limited round 1 because I've set up the Rangers so far away. So if the enemy wants to move forwards, then that's fine by me. I just hope that they fail to cast Arcane Urgency to move again, is the dream. So, turn 1, we've got some dogs in marching column right up into the flank there, which obviously they're not a threat while they're in marching column because they can't charge anybody. So they're just a minor annoyance. And avoiding the Doomseekers at the moment. So, the Skin Wolf unit has Arcane Urgency put on it, which means they're now really close to me. And that's obviously terrifying, especially to the unit of Iron Drakes whose flank is facing them now. So the Iron Drakes can't stand still anymore because I have to get out of their charge arc, otherwise I'll get charged in the flank, die, and then they'll turn to face my other good unit. So this unit, the terrifying thing about Skin Wolves is, the way it's explained to me, is that each time they go into combat, they gain a different buff. So you can keep stacking up all these different buffs on them that make them really killy and survivable. And because it's one big blob with these 2 demonic mount characters in there as well, everything that benefits anything in there, the spells that are on them, are going to benefit the unit as well as the 2 characters in there. These 2 big gribbly giants at the back are unit filler, I think. But obviously it looks cool to have big headless monstrosities in there. And if you've ever seen any of my giants for my Kings of War Night Stalker army, then you know I'm a big fan of headless giants. So, obviously they're not doing much offensively to me turn 1, but they're right in front of my face now, and I have to decide, do I kill this unit? Because with the buffs on them, I think they've got really high toughness now. They've got ward saves on them, they've got regeneration. I don't think that I'm going to kill that unit, whatever I do. So, I'm going to have to shoot them a bit with the Rangers, and if I get a lucky round, I might kill a few of them, and at that point I would then decide maybe to go in on killing them. At this stage, I'm thinking I'm not going to kill the unit, so I'm just going to try and kill everything else. Which isn't a winning strategy, because most of the points are in this Death Star, but I don't see a way of scoring points if I just focus on that unit, so I'm going to try and kill things that I can kill. So I'm going to go for the 2 Chaos Spawn with my Grudge Throwers. because they have random movement, they don't allow stand and shoot. So I want to hit the closest one and try and kill that before it makes its random move and potentially hits the Iron Drakes, shutting down their stand and shoot. So, in my turn, the Grudge Throwers take aim, and the Rangers take aim as well. So the Rangers do some damage to the Skin Wolves. Doomseeker charges into the Hounds and kills 4 of them, which is nice. The Grudge Throwers manage to kill one of the... well, they mostly kill one of the Chaos Spawn, and then the Iron Drakes have to finish the job. So they've also moved forward, as you can see, so they're not going to get flanked by the Skin Wolves. And... yeah, that's that. This Doomseeker failed its charge because the Hounds fled and then tried to redirect into these Knights, but didn't quite make it. So that one obviously killed 4. So into the enemy turn 2. Skin Wolves are obviously going to try and charge me, but they've got their buffs up again. Spells being cast on them successfully. Enchantments. One of the ambusher units comes in, but it has to be way at the other end because they can't come on the sides on Mountain Pass because it's just a big mountain there. So they have to come on from their own edge, which is nice for me because they're really far away. So Fleshy Abundance, which I think is the ward save, or is it the regeneration? One or the other. They already had one, they've gained the other. So this unit is pretty close to unkillable, I think. They declare the charge. I stand and shoot. They declare a charge with the Knights into the Doomseeker. I'm going to accept because I'm going to be striking first, so that's okay by me. And these Knights charge into the other Doomseeker. So let's see if anyone makes their charge. The Knights make that charge, the Knights make that charge, and the Skin Wolves make their charge, suffering only minor casualties from the stand and shoot of all the Rangers' crossbows. So, thankfully, the big lumbering Chaos Spawn doesn't reach combat, so I've got one more turn to deal with that. And these doggos are just sprinting behind my lines, still in marching column, so they're not too big of a threat at this stage. But at this point, I'm thinking I definitely lose this game because my Ranger unit is going to die, but I can try and keep the score close by killing everything else. That's the plan anyway, because this unit has to then deal with Grudge Throwers. One mistake I've definitely made here is a totally needless one. You can just nudge one Grudge Thrower 1 millimeter behind the other, and then when they overrun through this unit at some point, they'll come into contact with just one of them instead of both. But because I've put them level with each other, and that's just down to laziness really, there's no reason to ever put them perfectly level with each other. You should always just have one tiny millimeter difference. There's no reason not to do it. I can't think of any reason other than just laziness and thinking, well, that's not a thing that matters, and then when the time comes, it actually does. So, the Doomseeker over here with the Rune of Swiftness blasts those Knights to pieces with his axes, and then they don't kill him. So that's nice. And up here, this Doomseeker gets wounded, and I don't know if he does anything in retaliation. So, some of the Rangers are dying, but they're able to give ground, and that's okay. So the Rangers still hanging in there, still got the General alive. I don't do too much back to them though, so holding them up for a turn, best I can hope for, sadly. So into my turn 2. Oh, by the way, those dogs are still fleeing. Now it's my turn 2, and the combat's going to continue there. I'm going to lose my General this time in a challenge. And against this kind of horrible units, challenging is usually a good thing, even if you get overkilled, because it means that your unit size isn't going to drop down below half of the unit strength of the enemy as fast. Because you're giving up combat res, but you're not giving up numbers. So you want to keep challenging as long as possible in that kind of situation, because then you'll still be able to fall back in good order, which they can do because they'll just land behind the war machines there. My Gyrocopter gets into position and flames the doggos, but only kills one of them, which is probably the worst number to kill because now they're not in marching column and they could charge me now, which is another kind of really weird rule in the game. And over here, the Doomseeker beats the Knights in combat this time and pushes them back. This Doomseeker, yeah, there he is. This one is just out on his own. Everyone's going to be running away from him now. But he actually kills off the Knights and then overruns in this direction. Doesn't reach anybody else though. So everyone's going to start scattering away from him in a minute. So turn 3 for the enemy. Both units of ambushers steam into the Doomseeker. The other Doomseeker is being ignored by the looks of things. The 4 Skinwolf unit that have been working their way around the flank are chasing after this Gyrocopter, who is still alive. He's just there to stop ambushes coming on in this corner. And the Doggos decide not to charge the Gyrocopter. They decide to go around the back and try and get the War Machine next turn instead. So the ambushers kill the Doomseeker, which is sad. But at least he's not giving away any points. More Skinwolves dying, so that's cool. They're down to 3 Skinwolves and the 2 big characters, but obviously the Rangers are dead. Because... let's see. So they didn't all get wiped out from the attacks, I don't think. But I did flee enough to get off the table, I think. So that is very sad. Then... I think we're into my turn 3. Yeah, there we are. So, interesting situation. My Gyrocopter killed the dogs, overran to there, so not very far, sadly, which then means that when the Skinwolves killed both Grudge Throwers, which were lazily positioned not 1mm behind the other, maybe you should just wear a t-shirt that says, my Grudge Throwers or my War Machines are intended to be 1mm behind the other and not in a perfect line. That might be a way of dealing with it. Because then if you just plop them down on the table and they look level, you can say, well, look at the t-shirt, buddy. So they overrun into the Gyrocopter. So they'll be able to fight that next time. My Thane and all my shooting attacks whittle down these units seriously. You can see those Knights are down to 1 and they're running away. Doomseeker's chasing these dogs that are running away. He's chasing them into difficult terrain, so hopefully he can try and get himself killed if he can't chase anyone down. Gunthane fires. We've got multiple units on 1 model left, which is the standard dwarf behaviour. Shoot things up, get 1 model left in the unit, and then they hide, so you don't score many points for them. We've got Gemmel in the chat. Good evening. So, yeah, so not a lot accomplished. I'm killing plenty of models. You can see them all piling up in the dead pile at the back there, but not finishing off units, which is the typical dwarf move. So, because my big Ranger Death Star is dead, I still have a significant number of points here, though. So my goal now is for this unit to not die. If that happens, then it's going to be a close end result, rather than a total stomping. So I'm just going to get away from this unit, ideally, now. Turn 4 for the enemy. So Skinwolves hiding, and it seems my opponent is also going for points denial now, because it's the situation it's in. He's definitely going to win. So it's just about maximising the score now by not giving away units needlessly. But they're also encroaching on my dead pile, which means that you do lose sportsmanship points for making your opponent move their corpses. It's just like moving into your opponent's dice pile is bad sportsmanship as well, technically. So, can they kill a Gyrocopter? I'm sure they can. This Knight is still fleeing. They can kill a Gyrocopter, and they overrun, but they do not... They're frenzied, by the way. So they have to, but they do not reach the table edge. Oh, they do, actually. Yeah, so they're actually up here, not on the table, but they're just left there for the time being. So they overrun off the table. So, in my turn 6, because we are trying to rush through this game a little bit now, because we're coming to the end of the round, so what I want to do, it's an interesting rules situation. So these guys are off the table. My Gyrocopter can land in the spot that they left the table. My thinking was that if I put my Gyrocopter, like there, slightly to one side of the spot they left, and they try and come back on, would that then force them to appear on this side of it, which puts them really far away from the unit I don't want them to kill? Or could they choose which side to come on? If I put it dead centre, could they choose which side to come on then? So I think the way it was ruled in the end is that if I position slightly to one side of the spot they left, when they come back, they would have to come back on this side. Now, I don't know whether you can stop units coming back onto the table entirely, because you can do nudging in Warhammer, but if you have just a long line of dudes there, so that there's physically nowhere for them to re-emerge onto the table, how far do you nudge the enemy? So, I'm not sure about that. Anyone who's in the chat or in the comments after the video, let me know if you've got thoughts on that one. So, it ended up not mattering anyway, because my opponent also said that he wasn't going to try and hunt down my unit. He was just going to try and preserve his points now so he could cling on to the win, and I was going to try and cling on to the narrow margin of loss. You can see a lot of these enemy units have got one model in and running away. Or rallying, which means I don't score that many points. So, I think that was a very difficult matchup. I think the Skin Wolves are just a really good unit. I don't see a good answer to them. I don't know what we could have done differently to avoid them, with Arcane Urgency yeeting them across the table in front of me. I don't know. Maybe not putting any heroes in the Raging unit would have denied them some more points, but then would they have just gone for the Iron Drakes instead? Which would have ended the same way. It's hard to say. And if you put your heroes out on their own, there is a risk other things will be able to catch them. So, I don't know. It's a very tough matchup. So, we're going into the next round. So, oh yeah, the score for that round, by the way. In the first game, my score was, just pulling up the pairings here. So in the first round, I won 18-2, which is obviously a nice juicy win. In round 2, my loss was quite small. It was an almighty 13-7 loss. So that's acceptable, because I think this is a really tough list. And I think my opponent is one of the hardcore players who is all in on the meta as well. So I'm not too disappointed with that. Based on the enemy list, I think that's a decent result. So I'll allow it. Next game, open battle. And in the next round, up against Bretonnians. So on the one hand, Bretonnians are something I want to face, because they have knights, which are the perfect target for Iron Drakes in particular. On the other hand, they also have Pegasus Knights, who are quite an inconvenience, so I have to position to make sure that their impact is minimised, and that's what I've gone for. So let me pull up my opponent's list here, and then I'll go through my strategy on trying to handle the Pegasus Knights. We have got a Duke with Dragon Slaying Sword on Royal Pegasus with Gromril Greathelm, Virtue of Confidence, and Gauntlet of the Duel. So that's pretty beefy Duke. And I'll get a close-up, actually, of the opposing army. Well, we've got the Green Knight in there, obviously. The Duke is actually on a toad, which is pretty cool. Rather than a Pegasus, it's just a giant leaping toad, which I think is a very cool concept for a Bretonnian Duke. Then we've got a Paladin, who is the standard bearer on a Bretonnian Warhorse, who is hanging out in one of these units. And I think that's him there at the front of that knightly unit there. There's a Prophetess, level 4, with Battle Magic, Lore Familiar, obviously. Would anyone miss it if Lore Familiar was just taken out the game so you couldn't pick your spells? I think that would improve the game a lot, actually. It would make wizards way less powerful, so I don't know whether people would actually approve of it. And maybe the issue is that some of the spells are just so much better than the others that some of them are just auto-pick, so being able to choose them leads to no variety because you always get the best ones. Ed says, my Illusion Vampire count says no. I can imagine it does. Yes. But I feel like if all the spells were kind of equally good in different ways, then having to roll randomly wouldn't be that big of an issue. You'd have to build a list where you could benefit from whichever spell combo you get, which I think is quite interesting. We've got the Green Knight, obviously, 275 points, and if we look at places the Green Knight can pop up on this table, we've got 2 woods. One there, right in front of my lines, and one there. So, what else have we got? We've got core units. We've got 3 units of Mounted Knights of the Realm, 2 with 6, 1 with 5. They have got champions. They do not have any other command. So they do have, obviously, the Battle Standard Bearer in one of them. So they're just Knights of the Realm. No Grail Knights, who are a little bit on the expensive side for how easy they can die. 2 units of Peasant Bowmen. And they're across the front there. We've got 8 Squires. So Squires can scout, which is why, if we go back, you'll see a unit of scouts right there. Bretonnian Squires, just hanging out over there. Then 3 Pegasus Knights, which are over here with the Duke, and then 4 Pegasus Knights on this side. So, let's go back to the wide shot and I'll talk about my strategy for dealing with Pegasus Knights. I normally, against Bretonnians, gun down all their normal knights, and then the Pegasus Knights get in with a Duke and just start chomp, 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 chomp all the way down the line and eat everything. So it usually ends up being quite a close game where I wipe out most of everything else and then the Pegasus Knights wipe out most of my army. So, what am I going for here? I'm using this piece of terrain. So I've got a gyrocopter on this side and a Doomseeker on this side. This is after the Vanguard moves, by the way, when I've actually brought them inwards. They were further out to start with. I wanted to deter any Pegasus Knights from coming around that side, because you can't charge the Doomseeker or the gyrocopter because they're hiding. If you want to charge them, you have to pop out at the bottom there and allow them to charge you first. So they charge in. Because you're not charging with the Pegasus Knights, you probably... Well, there's a chance you don't kill the gyrocopter, because it is toughness 5. And the Doomseeker will probably do some damage to you. And you're all the way back there. And then, if you are going round that way, the Iron Drakes will then consider turning round to look at you. I've also got this War Machine here, which is really intended to be a bit of bait for anything that does come round this side. The War Machine can potentially take a charge for a turn, and then the overrun would probably be going this way and not into the Iron Drakes. So they might be tempted by this morsel on the way, which gives me more time to turn the Iron Drakes round to shoot them. The other side, I've got a similar setup with a gyrocopter and a Doomseeker behind the woods. The reason these ones have come inside is because the Pegasus Knights on there are showing no intent of flanking, so I feel like I can abandon this now, and if they do start going that way, I'll just take them back. So that's the deterrent. And then we've got these big, enormous lines. Lines are a risk against Bretonnia because they're very fast. If they get 2 units of Pegasus Knights, a Duke, and 3 units of Knights of the Realm charging into this block at once, even though there's 31, they could quite possibly kill them all. So, it's a risk, but I don't think they're all going to get there at the same time. And I think once they're advancing, I'm going to be blasting them to smithereens as well. The stand and shoot could potentially wipe out an entire unit from a unit this wide. It's a risk, though, because if they do get multi-charged and killed, the Iron Drakes are close behind them, who could then be overrun into and lose out on their own stand and shoot. I've put the Thane with the Grungni banner down there on the Iron Drakes for now. And the reason for this is because I've put the Rangers outside my deployment area. So they are scouting, but I've got all the heroes that want to go in the unit just behind them so they can enter on turn 1. And I suspect my opponent is going to pray and give me the first turn, so I will be able to put them in there before the enemy do anything. So they are going to get ward saves against me, though. The War Machines are mostly going to be firing blind because there aren't really any large targets. This one might be able to have a couple of views at things occasionally, but I'm mostly going to be hoping to just like kill a knight with them each turn. There's no real juicy targets in this list. There isn't like a trebuchet that I want to hit. There isn't a hippogriff, which would be a large target and easier to see. So there was a bit of a scout battle going on as well, because if these guys had deployed closer to me, I wouldn't have been able to put my line of rangers there. The reason I want them there is because the Green Knight may well appear here, and the rangers are a unit I want him to fight. Because I'm going to put my handgun Thane in there, stick him about there in the unit, so wherever he appears, hopefully I'll be able to stand and shoot with him. And then I'm also going to put the BSB in there as well in the first turn, which means that I'll be able to then challenge the Green Knight with the BSB and hit him with my magical Great Axe. And then I've got combat res from the Rune of Battle, so I think I'm equipped to deal with the Green Knight, and if he wants to attack a Doomseeker, that one's always striking first with magical attacks, so that might be a bad idea too. I don't want it to get to the War Machines, the Green Knight. I don't want it to get to the Iron Drakes, ideally, unless I've got a big hero in there, so that's why they're behind everything else. If he comes in over there, that's fine, because he's quite far away, so I can live with that. I suspect he'd be more inclined to appear over here, since it's right next to me. Okay, let's go in. That's a lot of pre-game strategy talk. Let's go into turn 1. So my opponent does pray, so I go first. Gyrocopter chases down the squires and kills them. So they flee, and he just catches them because he's a swift-striding gyrocopter and murders the squires. So, okay, I'll take it. It's cool. The Doomseeker makes a little bit of a move forwards there, and the Iron Drakes actually move forwards so they can target the enemy with some of their shots, and then the Rangers shoot as well. So, among all that, we've got 1 knight killed with all my shooting, and I've killed some of the peasant bowmen as well from up here. So, not hugely significant. I've pushed my gyrocopter up behind the woods, which is another This is just Green Knight bait, really. If you want to charge a gyrocopter, I'm just going to flee. And even if you catch it, it's not that big of a deal. Because you're then out in the open. I've got my Thane with the handgun in the unit. Now, where I've positioned him, I was thinking there wouldn't be a place you could put the Green Knight in these woods that I wouldn't be able to see you for stand and shoot. But I think there might actually be one. I think I should have put him here. I don't know, because I think the angle you have to be at, because of the size of your base, you can't get right into this corner. So I think the Thane should actually go there, because I think there is a spot over here just out of my arc of sight. It would also be helped if I just moved the Rangers back an inch, and I think then he would be able to cover the whole thing. So in my opponent's turn, the Green Knight is here. So he pops up, but thankfully he's positioned himself in such a way that my Thane with handgun can still see him. I think if he tilted him a bit this way, I wouldn't have been able to see him. We've got Perfidy in the chat. Gemmel says, half the spells do seem completely redundant. Yeah, you don't see a lot of spells being cast at all. You just don't see them being chosen. So I think the fact that you can pick them does take a lot of flavour out of the game. All you ever see, you see Arcane Urgency, you see anything that gives a ward save, anything that gives you extra move, you see Vortexes being thrown around left and right, and you see Magic Missiles, and what else do you even see? You'd see occasionally Curse of Cowardly Flight. I don't see that too often chosen against me because dwarves are more resilient against that compared to some armies, but I have seen that taken. And just some of the laws have great spells in them, like Vile Tide for the Beastmen, but again, that's pretty much the only one you see all the time. You see that constantly. So it would be nice if all the spells were more level with each other, but you did have to pick them randomly. I would just get rid of all spell selection in the game. However, weirdly, I would also give the Anvil of Doom more runes to choose from as well. Which is weird. I want to get rid of spell choosing, but I want to give the dwarves the ability to choose spells, because they're not really spells. You're not calling on your magical powers at the start of the battle. You're physically taking these runic tablets out there that you're then striking. So it does make sense that you would choose those. And okay, well, maybe certain wizards. Like scholarly wizards that are actively writing down, scribing out their spell on a scroll that they're then like holding aloft to cast the spell. That's fine. You're choosing that. If you're a wizard who's just saying, hey, evil gods, give me a hand down here, and then say, okay, here's a spell for you, I don't see why you should be able to choose those. Okay, so stand and shoot. Does a bit of damage to the Green Knight. You can see, because of the positioning, I can just about see him. So he takes some wounds there. He does make it in, though. And the Pegasus Knights have moved their way around the side here. They couldn't charge the gyrocopter because they can't see it. The Knights of the Realm on this side are moving towards me, down here. The bowmen, the peasants, are moving up to screen the Knights of the Realm. Now, on the one hand, I'm not too concerned about that. I've got one guy here who doesn't care. As long as he can see the enemy, he can shoot them anyway. And I've got a few different units that can shoot. So if I pick something that's not as significant, maybe the Handgun Thane, and just use him to clear out a unit of peasants, then that would free up my ability to shoot the Knights. And the Iron Drakes are obviously on the hill, so they can shoot over the peasants anyway. So, some spells are going off here. So there is a Fireball. I can see a card for that there. And there's also some extra buffs going on to these Knights as well. I think maybe they've been given a regeneration save. I could be wrong. So an Iron Drake is killed with the spells. I think that's with a Fireball. And the Pillar of Fire is out, obviously. So that's going to be working its way towards me. It's not right next to me, though, so I might have one turn before it gets to me. There we go. So, my Thane gets into a challenge with the Green Knight with my magical great weapon. I don't take any wounds, and then he just cuts the Green Knight's ethereal head off. So, very happy with that. First go at the Green Knight, and he's immediately dead. So my unit is not tied down, and raring to go for the next turn. So good job, the two models that were in there to deal with that. And then with my reform at the end of combat, because I avoided overrunning, then the Handgun Thane moves his way down to this end of the unit. Because I'm now so confident that I'm going to kill the Green Knight, I don't even worry about this guy standing and shooting against him anymore, so I just want him further down this way so I can pop him out and shoot at something different. Turn 1. So yeah, turn 2 for me. The Gyrocopter and the Doomseeker they charge these Knights of the Realm. So also, I should point out that my gyrocopters can't fly this turn. So they're down to movement 1 because the Bretonnian horn was blown furiously into the skies, and if you're not a Pegasus, you ain't flying this turn. So it still has Swift Stride though, which makes no sense at all, but I'll allow it. So 2 charges declared, and the Knights choose to flee. Is that a good move? I think it possibly is, but I don't know. It is tough to say, actually, because you're going to kill a Doomseeker probably, but he could kill a few Knights, because they've only 1 wound each. Yeah, it's a tough one, but they do decide to flee anyway. This gyrocopter charges into the peasant archers, who again flee, so the Knights fleeing over there, I don't catch them with either unit. All my shooting blasts away at the Knights of the Realm, who've been uncovered by the fleeing peasants who fled from the gyrocopter, because if they hadn't fled, let's see what would have happened here. So I would have charged them, landed here, and then they would have all formed upon me, so they would have freed up a gap for me to shoot through anyway. So fleeing doesn't hurt them that badly. So after all my shooting, I've taken out a load of Knights. I've totally killed 1 unit entirely. This unit's down to just 1 and the BSB. Between the Rangers and the Iron Drakes and the Thane and the Grudge Throwers. So it's looking pretty tasty at the moment. You can also see that my gyrocopter there redirected its charge into the Pegasus Knights. The reason for that is that I want to make sure that they're going to be in the front of my Rangers. Because if I'd been able to charge the peasants, I would have taken that because it would have given me more ability to shoot. But I would have had to move my Rangers to prevent a flank charge from the Pegasus Knights there. But because I've now charged in there, and they then form up, we form up on each other, so they all compact themselves this way a bit, which means that they're now in the front. And the gyrocopter actually survived as well, which is good. So the Pillar of Fire this turn does manage to get over both my units and does a little bit of damage, but not much. With the high toughness, Dwarves are a bit more resistant to it than some other factions. Then these Bretonnian Knights fail to rally after they intentionally fled, which means that if they roll a high number, they just die. However, they roll, I think it's a 3. Yeah, there we go. They roll 3. So if they'd rolled like 5, they would have been off the table and gone forever. So they got away with the one there. Let's see, we've got Peter in the chat who says, I find my foot of... I assume that's Foot of Gork, not Foot of Work. Foot of Gork constantly just stomps my own troops. And that is what it should be doing, isn't it? As an Orc spell. The Pegasus Knights and the Duke charge into this Doomseeker on his own. And my opponent was clearly thinking about just moving down here instead. And I think that's probably a better thing to do. Because as it stands, both the units of Pegasus Knights are being drawn into the centre, which is obviously where I want them, rather than flanking me. But on the other hand, if you do go around the flank, let's see, what can I do about it? This guy could shoot you with his handgun of doom. He might kill 1 Pegasus Knight, but I don't think that's significant. So I think I would have just not charged the Doomseeker here. So if my opponent ever watches this video, then let me know if there's a deep strategic reason for attacking this Doomseeker rather than working towards my flank. The Green Knight is back, and he joins in on the gyrocopter from the other woods this time, so he's too scared of the Rangers, goes for the gyrocopter instead. Maybe wisely. So this gyrocopter, this one here, which has been fleeing, that one takes some damage. And obviously the Doomseeker is killed, and the Bretonnian Knights, actually, the Pegasus Knights and the Duke, I think they actually fail their leadership test and end up overrunning a few inches. Which is quite funny. And now they're right in front of me. Right where I want them. The Green Knight does kill the gyrocopter, as you'd expect, and they do a bit of repositioning as well. So they're also in the front of the Rangers. Okay, so in my turn, what is the plan? I could take a double charge in the next turn in the front from 8 Pegasus Knights. Well, 7 plus a Duke. That would be a lot of damage going into the Rangers, but it's not as bad as being joined by more than that, obviously. So 31 Rangers, maybe a couple of them have been killed by like the Pillar of Fire by now. So about 30 rangers against all that. I still think it's not a guarantee that they would totally stomp my fighting rank. I think I would still have a decent number of attacks back after they've attacked, but it's a bit dicey if you're getting double charged. So what I would like to do is try and not get double charged. Do I have a way of accomplishing that? Let's find out. So what I'm going to do, which is a bold maneuver, I am not going to shoot my rangers at anything. I don't want to get double charged, so how do you not get double charged? You charge into something else first. So I'm going to charge my rangers into these Pegasus Knights. However, this guy is standing in the way, so he's also going to have to charge, and because he's in difficult terrain, it's going to be quite a difficult charge to reach these two peasants there. So hopefully, even if he fails, I roll high enough so that he moves like 2 inches, I think he needs to go, to allow this unit to get in there without having to do any kind of awkward wheeling. So he needs to, I need to not roll a 1 on the 2 dice, I think, and he'll get far enough away so that they can charge the Pegasus Knights. And then we've got a line of 30 rangers who have charged, fighting the Pegasus Knights. Fighting them on my terms, where I think I'm much more likely to obliterate them, rather than trying to shoot them and then taking the double charge next turn. And with the rangers out the way, the Iron Drakes can turn and they can shoot this unit over there. So here we go. Grudge thrower this turn. What do we do? Land on the Sorceress, but she's got 1 wound left after it hits, so I think I just rolled a 1 or a 2 and take 2 wounds off her, so she's still got 1 left. This Gyrocopter fails to rally, so it's continuing to flee. So thankfully, my Thane with a gun rolled high enough on the dice, so he gets far enough ahead, so I can complete this charge. And as a result, I kill all but 1 Pegasus Knight, the other one flees, the Doomseeker tries to chase after it because he also charged. Doesn't quite catch it though, because he rolls really low on his pursuit. And this unit, as far as I could tell, can't really pursue anyway, because this guy would be blocking me, so I just restrain with them. Which also means this unit of Pegasus Knights is now in the front and they'll be charging in on their own, so I think that was definitely the right move, attacking the other unit first. And if they'd fled, obviously, they wouldn't be able to charge me next turn, so I wouldn't get double charged either. So the goal was just avoid the double charge, and that has worked. So I still have to kill this guy to get victory points, though, because 1 Pegasus Knight on its own in a unit of 4 means that it's not below 25%. So I'm currently scoring 0 if it ever rallies, and it's not below 25%, so also it can rally on its full leadership instead of the double 1 situation. Because it's only a unit of 4, so you never get put in that situation. So that's the benefit to running things in 4s or less. One of the benefits. You can also see that Burlock Daminson has an artillery dice next to him. Did I actually get a picture of what strength he was for the combat? No, I didn't. I didn't zoom in enough. You know what? Let's see if we can zoom in here. What does that look like? That looks like strength 10 to me. So he was able to whack with 1 supporting attack at strength 10. So turn 3 for the Bretonnians. If you were the Pegasus Knights now, what do you do? Do you say, you know what? Let's just go for it. Charge in, try and kill you and not die. Do you fly over the back and get shot to bits by Iron Drakes? Or do you just run away? It's a difficult situation for the Bretonnians now, because these knights have been fleeing. They're going to try to rally again, so they're not in the game. These guys have got 1 non-favourable charge. The other thing you can do is charge the Thane. If you charge him, he has got a good stand and shoot, but then you could overrun into the Rangers and avoid their stand and shoot. It's debatable whether that's even the right thing to do, because you wouldn't be able to fight the Rangers this turn, unless that's your goal not to fight them this turn. And the Thane, his stand and shoot is probably going to do more than the few Rangers that can actually see you at the moment. So, I don't know. If I was the Pegasus Knight player with a Duke here, I think I would just not want to fight this unit at all. I would just fly away. Not very brave and not very honourable, but I think it's the right choice. Turn 3, Pillar of Fire. Blasts through the Rangers, does a little bit of damage. The Pegasus Knights do decide to charge the Rangers and bypass the Thane. So the Green Knight also charges into the Rangers. So they make it in, the Green Knight makes it in as well. So now that the Green Knight is in there, that means that someone else can issue a challenge. So I can't get this guy to fight the Green Knight anymore with his magical great weapon, because someone in this unit could issue a challenge first. So I would have to accept that rather than challenge the Green Knight. So that is actually a good trick. If you're sending the Green Knight into a unit that has a magical weapon on the champion, send him in with a unit that has somebody that can take a challenge as well. And then you can accept the challenge from that character with the unit champion instead of your ethereal Green Knight. I don't know why I'm giving people tips on how to win more with the Green Knight. This is just silly now. Let's see. Nis says, fighting rank is just a silly, underwritten piece of game design. Yes. Being able to fight with 100 models who are like 5 feet away from you. 5 real feet, by the way. So like in battlefield scale terms, like hundreds of yards away, they can still hit you, is a complete nonsense, and it's just bad game design. However, the way dwarves are at the moment, I don't see a way to perform well without going into ridiculous lines. They just are not good. And the intent for this event was to just try and win games and try and bust the meta. And hopefully they fix Linehammer, but in doing so, they actually give infantry a boost so that they don't have to do it. Because it is nonsense. If they just declared, actually, you can't get supporting attacks from more than like 2 guys on each side that aren't in contact, that would fix a lot of Linehammer issues, and you would then have to add in another rule so people would actually take infantry, and you'd have to give them something to play for, so maybe scenario based. If you're not going to actually fix the core rules in regards to how they interact with enemy units, you could fix how they interact with the battlefield for objectives and such. So that's what I'd like to see them do in the update that's coming allegedly in the new year. So, the one Pegasus Knight does rally, and he flaps behind my lines. Now, if I was this Pegasus Knight, I don't think I would have done that. I can understand wanting to pick up points, but I think he's going to get shot to death. I think I would have hidden. We go back and look where he was. So he's here. Maybe he can make it all the way down and hide behind this building. Maybe he would still be within Doomseeker charge range, I don't know. I don't think so. I think he could escape. So I think maybe he could be escaping now and denying me some points. Peter says, is it worth linehammering my Night Goblins as they only have 1 attack? So, you want to linehammer with 1 attack units, because you only get 1 attack if you're not touching and you're part of the fighting rank. So if you've got anything that's got a really good 1 attack, like Dwarf Rangers, then that's the ideal unit for it, because they're hitting with good weapon skill and high strength with their great weapons. So you only need 1 attack each. If you're Night Goblins, you only have 1 attack each anyway, so you're going to get maximum attacks. So if you go like 100 goblins wide and just go for sheer weight of dice, I don't know how effective it would be with goblins, because you would get multi-charged and you'd be blocking some of your other units, possibly. You'd get charged by a lot of units, and then your attacks coming back wouldn't pack the same punch as, let's say, Dwarf Rangers or Hammerers. Hammerers are an interesting one, though, because if you go full line hammer with them, the units on the outside that aren't touching, if you gain the extra attack for being charged, then those guys wouldn't get it. But the ones that are touching would. So it depends on the width of the enemy there. So, continuing, we have got some charges that have gone in, and what do you think is going to happen here? Spoiler alert, the Green Knight gets killed by combat resolution, and yeah, I end up with loads of combat res. I get 9, my opponent gets 4. So it doesn't kill much at all with the Pegasus Knights. And the Duke is the only one that survives, and he's fleeing. And I pursued, but obviously did not catch him, because I bumped straight into the back of my own Thane instead. But I wouldn't catch him anyway with that roll. Look how far away he is. Ed says they aren't good enough in melee to get the combat res you want. You want the 3 ranks of leadership and combat res. Yeah, so not ideal with Night Goblins, really, because you don't pack the punch. So you'd be better off getting your combat resolution from a rank bonus. And the wider you are, of course, the wider the enemy can go and still get maximum attacks on you. So the more narrow you are, the less of their models are going to get more than 1 attack. So in the case of a really crummy unit like Night Goblins, I don't see... There probably are situations where it would be good to go 100 Night Goblins wide. But probably not a lot of situations. Unless you have some way of making them, like, unbreakable, which seems unlikely. Okay, so someone will probably come up with a situation where 100 wide Night Goblins would be great, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. So, Green Knight's dead again. Pegasus Knights are dead. Duke is still alive. This unit of Knights rallied this time, so They are not fleeing off the table yet. On to my turn 4. So what am I going to do? Looking at this overview, my Thane with handgun is going to shoot these knights and try and kill a couple of them. If he can kill 2, he can force a panic check, and they're not within range of the BSB because it's all the way over there. So that's the plan, try and kill them. The Rangers are going to shoot at the Duke on a Toad. The Iron Drakes are going to turn around and try and kill this final Pegasus Knight, and the Grudge Thrower is going to try and land on the Battle Standard Bearer to get a lucky shot. You can say I only lost 3 Rangers to all those Pegasus Knights there, so fun times. Turn 4 for me. So, the Knights, I shot them with the Thane, killed enough, they panicked and ran off the table. I don't do any wounds to the Frog Duke, though, with the Rangers. The Iron Drakes turn around, and as you'd expect, they turn that Pegasus Knight into just a ball of smoke. The Grudge Thrower lands a direct hit on the Battle Standard Bearer and explodes it. Dead Battle Standard. The other Grudge Thrower, I think, tried to land on something, but missed. I think I went for Toad Boy there, but didn't successfully land on it. The Pillar of Fire keeps just going back and forth between my units, and doing little bits of damage here and there. Obviously this game is going very well. Wiped out all the Pegasus Knights, all the Knights of the Realm. There is a Prophetess left, there is a Duke, and a load of peasants. Let's see, D6 Wounds says, Dwarfs charging Peg Knights, hurrah, yes. Have you ever seen a more magnificent sight than Dwarves being able to charge Pegasus Knights? Did you think you would live to see this day? Because I did not. You can see the Doomseeker is going for his old trick of trying to fall down a rabbit hole now, because the enemy are just going to avoid him from this point. So he's going to try and get himself killed on dangerous terrain. Which again is a total nonsense, but if you're going to write the game in a nonsensical way, that's how it's got to be played. Especially at a tournament. Turn 4 for the Bretonnians. So, the Duke is going to fly away. The Green Knight's back again! And he's going to charge the Rangers again. And at this point, the Prophetess just runs away and hides from the Grudge Thrower, as you would. And yeah, so 1 second, I think I might be about to sneeze. It was a false alarm sneeze, no real sneeze there. So at this point, we were running out of time, so we decided to just do critical dice rolls, because everyone was about to vacate the building. And we decided the most important things were, the Green Knight gets killed, we'll roll to see if he would have come back before the end of the game. And he doesn't come back again, so I do get the points for him. Because if he could come back again, obviously he would just hide and preserve his victory points. And we rolled to see if I could get a lucky Grudge Thrower hit in on the Prophetess who's hiding, but I didn't. And I think we may have rolled to see if some peasants could like kill my Thane, but I don't think they did anything either. So we just rushed through the end of it, blasted through those last couple of bits, and the peasants obviously getting shot up as well by my units. So, end of the game, with the Bretonnians mostly being killed, but there is still an expensive Duke hiding somewhere and a Prophetess hiding, so it's not a total wipeout. So the final score is 16-4 to the Dwarves, so 2 tasty wins so far and 1 loss. Going into round 4. And what do we have here? We have more Dwarves, so we've already slain some Dwarves in round 1. We've now got to slay more of our bearded brethren. But I don't feel so bad because some of them aren't painted yet. So I'm going to take joy in killing those ones, not so much the ones that are nicely painted over there. So I will find my opponent's list on here. And let's see, Peter says, is there no way to keep the Green Knight away crazy? Well, the problem is, he can come back over and over again. It just gets harder on the dice for him to come back each time. So the more times you kill him, the more chance of him not coming back. And then when he does come back, he can appear 1 inch away from you in any natural terrain. So unless you completely fill the woods with one of your units, then he's got somewhere to arrive. And some events might even rule it differently, so different types of terrain class as natural. It's ruled at the TSN that only woods, that's the only places he can come back. But he is a menace, and people are having to build their entire list around a Green Knight, which is why I've got magical weapons on so many things. And I'm not deploying anyone near woods when there's a potential for a Green Knight popping up. So let's go through my opponent's list, and also this is command and controls. These woods are a big impassable objective in the middle essentially, so you get 200 points if you control that at the end of the game, and to control it you have to have 5 unit strength there, and the enemy does not. So let's go through my opponent's list. We have got Anvil of Doom, which is obviously very nice looking, and I think most of these aren't quite finished yet. So some of them are obviously nowhere near finished. These guys look like they're probably done, these Iron Drakes. These might be, yeah, I can see highlights on the black actually, so the anvil might be done. And obviously, look at that orange, very nice. I'm always terrified to do any kind of object source lighting because I think I'm going to ruin my nice clean paint jobs. So I haven't even attempted it really yet. And maybe I never will, because I've got so much stuff to paint for 8 different game systems that if I accidentally ruin a model and paint it in a way that I don't like, I would then have to go and do it all over again, which is just a waste of my time. So I don't think I'm quite at the level to pull off something like this and make it look that good yet. So we've got the Anvil of Doom, and the anvil does not have any upgrades on it, just a naked Anvil of Doom. We've got a Dwarf Engineer back there who just has a hand weapon, so just a normal standard Dwarf Engineer. We've got a Thane who is the BSB on Shield Bearers with Master Rune of Grungni, Master Rune of Gromril, Rune of Preservation, and Rune of Speed. And he is right there. So that one's obviously painted. His mate's not so much. Then there is a Thane with the Handgun of Doom, same as mine, and he is out here. So I'll go back to the wide shot in a minute and talk about the deployment strategy and all that. In core, there is a unit of Dwarf Warriors, which are right there. And they have great weapons, heavy armor shields, full command, and the Rune of Battle, which is just it's a nice rune. Guaranteeing +1 combat resolution is just nice to have. Then we've got 16 Rangers, and I'll show you where they are in a moment. We have got, in special, we've got a cannon, another cannon, and then 2 Grudge Throwers. One of them has the Rune of Reloading as well. I think it's this one here. So, there are the enemy Rangers. So let's go back to the wide shot now that we know what we're looking at. So, enemy Rangers positioned there. My opponent, with all those war machines, 2 cannons and 2 Grudge Throwers. Oh yeah, there's an organ gun in rare as well. And 2 lots of 6 Iron Drakes. So what are the liabilities in this game? Dwarves versus dwarves, that's what I always look at. Which units are giving away points? 2 units of small units of Iron Drakes are definitely giving up points, because they can easily be killed. And that's going to be points on the board. War machines, whoever wins the war machine battle, if the Grudge Throwers hit each other, then it's whoever goes first. And whoever lands a good hit first. So what I've done to mitigate that, because I was able to deploy my war machines after my opponent did. So, you can see they're both out here. I've positioned both of mine so that they can see this one, but not this one. My opponent can only see my war machines with this one, and not this one. So I've got a 2-on-1 situation for possible direct hits. This one is going to be firing indirectly at me. I'll be firing indirectly at that one as well, but I can also see cannons potentially with this one if my lines break up. But I don't see the cannons as a big threat because I've cut out line of sight to them as well with this hill and the big forest there. So the cannons can't see me. The organ gun as well. The reason I've got this guy positioned here specifically is because I want to target the organ gun as well. So one of them is going to go for the organ gun, this one is going to go for that Grudge Thrower. If the enemy kill this one, then I can still see it with this one to hit it as well. And this one is just firing indirect at everybody. So if you get the chance to put your war machines down second, that's something I would consider, kind of going this sort of 2-on-1 situation. So accepting one of them can see me, but both of mine can see it, which should, if I can kill that one before it kills me... what's going on here? There we go. I went backwards by mistake in the photos. Put me at an advantage, theoretically. Then, so their liabilities, obviously. Enemy cannons, I think they're deployed too close to me here, because they're within shooting range of my Rangers, and there's 31 of them, and they're on a hill. So there's going to be a lot of Ranger shots that can shoot not only Iron Drakes, but also cannons. And even though they're high toughness, I'd be wounding them on 6. But if I roll a 6, that means they don't get their armor save anyway. So I'm just throwing a million dice at them, and if I roll some 6s, I can just kill a cannon. So I think they could be hugging the back of the table a bit, because I don't want to come down off the hill. And I'd probably just accept the cannons shooting me for the whole game rather than move towards them. So I think they're a bit too close. I think they would have a spot to go out of range. I think they just wanted to get the best shooting angles into maybe the corners. If my opponent watches this video, maybe can shed some light on what the cannons are looking at here and why they want to be on the starting line there. The organ gun is obviously a big threat. So I've stretched out my iron drakes, so partly behind the central woods there. So the organ gun, if it's firing at them, they would get cover, which makes the organ gun quite ineffective if it's shooting at a unit with cover, because it's only going to be hitting on 6s then. So it's not very good at that, but it's obviously a big threat otherwise. It's big range. But because my units are so ridiculously long, it's never going to get a clear shot at them. I don't think it is anyway. Maybe it, no, I don't know actually, because I've got characters poking out this end as well, so yeah, you definitely can't see all of it. The Anvil of Doom, I have left myself in range of its magic missile with the Iron Drakes, because otherwise I just won't be able to shoot anything. And my thinking is, Rangers against Iron Drakes, I think my Iron Drakes are going to probably win that battle, so if I start whittling them down, I'll try and finish the job. If it starts going south, and I'm losing Iron Drakes at a faster rate to the Anvil of Doom and the Rangers, then I've got so many in the unit, I think I should have some good warning that it's not going my way, and I'll start backing them away out of the Anvil's range. So that is the plan. Ideally, I would like to keep a unit somewhere close to the middle, because then I can contest or hold the objective at the end. My opponent has the one pure fighting unit in the game, in this game, other than like Doom Seekers. One pure fighting block in this unit of warriors with great weapons with a fighty BSB in there. So, do they want to get into a fight, or are they just going to like skirt around and hide on this and just try and hold the objective at the end? Because anything they go for, I don't like their chances that much. I think they'll take so many casualties from stand and shoot, unless they've heavily whittled down one of these units before they get there. You can see I've got the Runesmith, who can't go into this unit yet, because I need to move first, because I've not left myself enough space, sadly. So I've got the BSB in with the Iron Drakes, because I have a feeling they're going to get shot by non-flaming attacks, so I've given them a ward save. I don't think my Rangers are in too much danger. They've only got a small Iron Drake unit and a load of War Machines that aren't going to hit too many of them, and aren't going to wound too many of them, so they don't need the ward save right now. They're just going to have the residual ward save from the BSB there for the moment. Gyrocopter hiding from enemy War Machines there. This gyrocopter, because I want to send it on a beeline straight for the enemy War Machines, and the Machine Gun Thane, along with both Doom Seekers. So if he shoots at them, they die, so that's great. If he doesn't shoot at them, they'll get in there and kill the War Machines. So either way, the Doom Seekers are going to have some good eating or some good dying, and the gyrocopter is just going to assist them as well. So, in we go into turn 1, and the evil dwarves get to go first. Let's see. Peter says there's no way to keep the green knight out. Matt says you can screen out the closest forest, but depends on deployment. Yes, it is possible to screen out the green knight. So if you've got a big enough unit of, let's say, skirmishers, and you totally fill up the woods with them, and there's nowhere for him to appear, then he has to appear at the woods that are further away from you. But the green knight might not be bothered about that. That might be fine. And you've now got a big unit of skirmishers in a place you didn't really want them to go in, possibly. So I think he's just too good, because most ambushers come in further away from you and they can't charge. He has the double whammy of being able to do both of those things, appearing right next to you and being able to charge, and he's something that can come back to life, so you can throw him in willy-nilly if you want to, and he'll still probably come back by the end of the game. So he's just very tricky, and any one unit in the game that forces everybody to totally rethink their list and try and sprinkle magical weapons everywhere, I think is maybe too good. Because if he was just ethereal, but he had to come in further away from you, I think people would think, okay, I don't need magical weapons everywhere, because I can kind of control where he can charge. If he had different places he could come in, and maybe instead of being an inch away, if he had to be 8 inches away, or 10 inches away, and maybe he couldn't charge you, but you could bring him on from the table edges as well, so he's harder to screen out. It's tough. It is a fun, unique thing that he can do, but I think it's combined with the fact that he's ethereal makes him a nightmare to the game, and a lot of people just don't like him. I don't mind him, I think he's cool enough, and I've got one for my Bretonnians if I ever get round to painting that army. Which, whenever I play a particular game system at an event, it does inspire me to start painting for that game. So because I had an Age of Sigmar one recently, and I'm trying to beef up my Stormcast Eternals, I've been painting quite a lot of those this week. So I've got some of those on the painting table, with at least 40 Bretonnian peasants behind them in the painting queue. And I've been playing Star Wars Shatterpoint as well, so I've got some Star Wars stuff to paint, but that's not many models. So hopefully the Bretonnians will get to the front again soon. So, the Handgun Thane takes a wound off the Gyrocopter, which is not too significant. The Iron Drakes pop forward and kill a single Ranger with the Trollhammer Torpedo. The enemy Rangers blast away and kill, along with the Anvil of Doom I think, kill 6 of my Iron Drakes, so that's not very nice of them. Yeah, the Anvil of Doom. Oh, the Anvil of Doom actually targeted the Gyrocopter. So, if the Gyrocopter hadn't been shot down, I was going to flank charge these Rangers. And I think that would have gone quite well. But it's now dead. Because if you flank charge a long line of Rangers, they are in open order, so they wouldn't have all died, but they wouldn't have been able to hit me very well. I would have probably killed at least one. Maybe even 2 of them, because 2 would have been enough to win the combat, I think, because they've got a standard, but they're not close order. So that would have been annoying for those Rangers, a Gyrocopter hitting them in the flank. Turn 1 for me, so what am I going to do from this position? The Iron Drakes are still fairly confident. They've got enough bodies alive at the moment, so I don't feel like I need to start retreating yet. Over here I'm going to be advancing on this gun position with my 3 flankers there. And then the Rangers are going to try and obliterate the small unit of Iron Drakes and give me an early lead, because they cost more than a Gyrocopter. So, here we go. Gyrocopter isn't in charge range, but moves all the way up to the enemy gun emplacement there. Well, it's kind of a gun and then a catapult emplacement, if you will. And the Doomseekers are going up there as well. I'm not sure if I'd remembered to move them by this point. And the Grudge Thrower targets the organ gun, direct hit, blows up the organ gun in 1 hit. Kaboom. Okay, so that is the dream, killing war machines in 1 hit. The other one does not hit anything though. Does not hit the enemy Grudge Thrower. So at this stage I took the photo and then realised I'd measured out the charge range for my Doomseekers, realised they weren't in, and then said, okay, I better not charge, then I'll just be able to move. And then totally forgot to move them. But my opponent did say, no, it's okay, I think this is when it happened, said, it's okay, you were going to move them anyway, so just move them. So I moved them forward 6 inches, and they're closer to the enemy. So, turn 2 for the enemy. So, controversial, Handgun Thane charging the Gyrocopter. This isn't something that was just done on a whim. My opponent was talking through the logic behind this as well. So if you think this is wild, I agree it's unpredictable, but there was reasoning given. So, if you shoot the Gyrocopter, and you miss, and don't kill it, then it's free to charge whatever it wants. If you charge the Gyrocopter, and do, let's say, a wound to it, and win the combat, then you're going to lock it in place for my turn, meaning it can't charge your war machines. So I do understand the logic of charging something instead of shooting it if you want to have a higher chance of locking it down. However, I think the Thane on average... Does he take 2 wounds off a Gyrocopter on average? Let's think about this. So, he's going to be hitting with at least 1, which is going to turn into probably 4 hits. You would be wounding with... You'd be wounding on 5s, so you might get 2 of them through. It's close whether you would kill him with the shooting on average or not. Because on average you get slightly more than 1 hit initially. But obviously, in reality, you can't hit like 1.5 times or whatever. So, it's a tough one. So I understand why the choice was made. I don't know whether I would have done the same thing. Because you've just got to have confidence and faith in your guns, I think. Ed says, I'm painting my Bretonnians now to see if I can get them ready for Riverlands next weekend. Exiles list, but no Green Knight. Well, that is a challenge, painting Bretonnians rapidly. I don't know if anyone's capable of that. How many have you got ready so far? Because that would be the determining factor, I think. So, the charge goes in there. we have got some repositioning. This big unit of dwarf warriors is making their way towards the centre. The anvil has been failing to convey them, though. So they're not getting closer to me, because I think they want to be heading round this side towards the Iron Drakes, which is the better move, because the Rangers are very powerful. So 5 more Iron Drakes dead from the shooting and the magic missile. It's at this point I'm thinking, might be time to start thinking about retreating. We'll see what my confidence is like. One of the cannons misfires and has to not fire next turn either, so it's been spun round to represent that. The other one kills a couple of Rangers. The catapults take aim and they don't do much either. So the gyrocopter wounds the Thane in combat, wins the combat, and then manages to restrain. So, this is an interesting situation now. Look at how we found ourselves. My 2 Doomseekers are just about within range of this guy, so they can declare charges. They probably won't make it, but they can declare, so they're heading that way. The gyrocopter can charge him as well. The gyrocopter could also charge a war machine. My fear is, because I want this Thane dead, that's my priority. Rather than getting the Doomseekers killed, I want them to kill him, because killing all this stuff is worth more points than the Doomseekers getting themselves killed. So if I just charge both of them, chances are they're going to fail it, because it's on the long end of the charge, and he would stand and shoot one of them to death. So he kills one, the other one fails the charge, ends up about here. The gyrocopter charges in to a grudge thrower. Would it kill a grudge thrower in one round? I don't know. War Machine crew are stubborn, so that would be a bit dicey. So I decide I'm going to charge everything at the Thane, because that way at least the gyrocopter will hit him if it doesn't die to the stand and shoot. And if he does stand and shoot, that means I've got 2 chances for the long charge instead of 1. So everything goes in. And no, did I just lie? Yes, I did. Okay, so I'm thinking a turn ahead, actually. So the gyrocopter charges in and kills this grudge thrower. These 2, this is the turn I forgot to move them, and then my opponent kindly let me move them up again. So yeah, I was just getting ahead of myself in the previous turn. So everything that I just described to analyse the situation for the Doomseekers and the gyrocopter, apply it next turn instead. Cannons take aim, kill a ranger or 2, not much effect. And hold on, we're on my turn, aren't we? So I've done a wound, actually, to the cannon. And then the Iron Drakes kill a couple of Rangers. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, next turn I'm going to think about bailing now, because it's not going very well. I've not killed too many of them with my Iron Drakes, so I'm going to start running away, because this unit is actually scary now. So my Rangers, I think it was them that put 1 wound onto this cannon, looking for 6s. So now we're on to turn 3 for the enemy. So at this point, the Thane is going to stand there and shoot at my gyrocopter. The cannons are going to be able to shoot. And yeah, nothing happens really, because the Thane totally fails with all his shots into the gyro. And a couple more Iron Drakes, I think, get killed. Not a lot. So into my turn, the Rangers fire again, and they kill the cannon by getting some 6s to wound. The Iron Drakes start backing away, because I don't want to be killed. And I don't hit anything with the Iron Drake unit, so the Thane just totally misses everything, and there's a picture of the floor as evidence. So, my Doomseekers charged into the Thane. One of them made the charge, one of them didn't. The gyrocopter also charged in, so this is a situation where I wanted to charge in with all of them at once, so he couldn't kill one and the other one failed the charge. So everything goes in there. I'm not too worried about this grudge thrower, because it doesn't have a direct line of sight on anything significant that it can hurt. So, double charge in there, but the Doomseeker and the gyrocopter do nothing. They don't do a single wound. So this is where I've been kind of cheating myself out of extra damage with the Doomseeker by, if anyone missed the start of the game where I was describing this, I've been double cheating with the Doomseekers for the entire event, but some of it's been to my detriment, because I've been treating them as if they're only strength 4 instead of 5, because I just forgot they were strength 5 for the entire event, which is hilarious. And I also forgot that they lose the AP on their weapon if they take runes on the weapon. So I've been treating them as having 1 lower strength, but with AP that they shouldn't have. So I like to think that balances out, so I'm not really a cheat. So if you're going to cheat, make sure you also cheat yourself out of something good to balance it out. I think that's how it works. Ed says, did 16 men-at-arms yesterday. You painted 16 men-at-arms in a day. That is some good going. I think I'm just quite a slow painter in general. I paint in a very slow and precise way. I don't like weather them up or do any object source lighting or anything fancy like that. I just like them all to look very nice and neat. And that does take a long time, sadly. Some people can paint to like the level of neatness I do, but with superior technique on things like blending, much faster than I can paint though. So I think I'm just slow at it in general. But I do put the hours in. So, turn 4 for the enemy. And this unit is actually getting quite close now, and another Iron Drake gets shot down. So this unit is actually very concerned now. So next turn, because of this situation, the characters are going to pile out of the unit and try and run away. Because I think if the Iron Drakes get killed, that would still leave me in a position to win if I mop up the top left corner, because I've killed enough war machines and stuff. But I couldn't lose all these characters, because that probably wouldn't be a win anymore. So, the gyrocopter does get shot down this time by the Thane. And the enemy shooting is a bit underwhelming. It's just one cannon that doesn't really do much. So, here's the situation. The Thane on Shield Bearers backs away, or heads out of the unit in this direction. He was on this end, which is why it looks like he's really far away from them, but he was actually sticking out on this end. He goes that way. Runesmith goes that way, Thane goes that way, they go backwards. Thane pops out and still shoots, but doesn't really do anything. He's been very ineffective in this game, but now I'm far enough away so they can't charge me this turn. So I've bought myself a turn. And I'm really just scattering to make sure they don't all get killed now. The Rangers shoot down another cannon, so good job by them. The Doom Seekers, both of them charge the Thane. One of them gets killed with the stand and shoot, the other one gets in, kills the Thane, and then overruns off into the corner. So next turn they'll be able to get the Grudge Thrower. And that's it for the turn. So into turn 5. So the Dwarf Warriors are moving ever closer to my Iron Drakes, and then they are conveyed forwards with the Anvil of Doom, and they're even closer. So, yeah, not much accomplished from the shooting though. The turns are getting very quick now because there's not much left, especially on the opposing side. So a lot of the points are in here, the Anvil of Doom as well. So I've been trying to lob rocks at the Anvil of Doom now and then, but I've not had much success so far. So what am I going to do here? This unit is obviously going to get charged. I've got one turn to just try and shoot them and kill as many as possible. Everyone else is just going to get out of there. Just run away as fast as they can. Even the Grudge Thrower is going to turn around and start going that way. And just get away from here. Because if the Iron Drake's going to die, I don't want to take anyone else down with them. So my turn 5. So this is how they scatter. So technically the Thane is still in charge arc, because I want to give him one last go at shooting at the Rangers, I think, before he potentially has to hide as well behind the building. Everyone else running away. The Iron Drakes stay there, kill a few of the Warriors, but not too many, and the BSB is running away. The Doom Seeker kills off the Grudge Thrower in the corner, but he's not going to be able to seek a glorious death because there's no difficult terrain over here and no enemies nearby. But he has killed quite a lot of stuff. So it was a gain, him going into that corner. I've moved up the Rangers, so I'm contesting the central objective area within 6 inches of it with a unit that has a unit strength of 5. And if the enemy want to hit my Iron Drakes, potentially they're not going to be within 6 of it anymore. So, turn 6 for the enemy. They charge into the Iron Drakes. The Iron Drakes decide, instead of holding, if we hold, we die. If we flee, we could actually land in a spot that is difficult to reach and also not off the edge. So I had to roll a 7 or less on the dice not to reach the edge, and thankfully I did, so they're just fleeing right towards the table edge. However, next turn this will pose a problem because there's only 4 left in the unit, so they're below 25%. They do have a musician though, so they would need a 3 to rally. Which is unlikely because my, let's see, my General and my BSB aren't around, so there's no kind of help they can get with that. Then, the Dwarf Warriors redirected their charge into the Thane, who also fled. And fled all the way over here. He actually rolled really high on the flee. So he had to go round this building and then continue and bounce through the Runesmith and get to there. So, He should be able to rally though, but if he doesn't and runs off the table, that would be some good points for the enemy dwarves. However, this unit is now like 9 inches away from the terrain, so unless they can't really go back anyway, so they're not contesting the middle objective, so that's going to be 200 points to me. Turn 6 for me, and a lovely upside down picture of the Dwarf Rangers. Okay, here's the situation. He rallies. The Iron Drakes do not rally. They fail to rally. They are 1.5 inches away from the table edge. So, Dwarves have -1 on their flee moves. So if I roll a double 1, they finish the game half an inch away from the table edge and only give away 50% of their points instead of 100%. And I roll a double 1. Wow, wow, wow. That wow, wow, wow is from the enemy's point of view, by the way. So the Iron Drakes are fleeing, they're below 25%, so you do score 50% for them, but they haven't reached the edge because of the double 1, so you don't score full. So they were quite happy fleeing from the enemy, but their tiny little legs prevented them from losing their honour. I think that's how it works. And then I wasn't able to shoot anything else down in the last turn, but obviously that is significant in the scoring. And before we go on to look at all the armies, I'll tell you what that meant for the score. So with the objective and the differential of points scored, I was able to win 13-7 against the enemy evil dwarves. So without the central objective, it would have been a 12-8. So 13-7, quite happy with that. And we're now going into the final round on 3 wins. So I am actually in a position, this might be the first time in Old World I've ever been in a position where I can strike at the top in the last round. So I'm going to be on one of the top tables, and depending how other games go, I do actually have a chance of winning the event in the last round now. Which is the first time it's ever happened, which coincidentally is the first time I've ever taken a list that I feel is actually pretty tasty. I think all the other lists have huge glaring weaknesses in them. I think this one's pretty good. And I've also managed to avoid some of the stuff that I was worried about initially. I've avoided the big flyers. I think I dealt okay with the Pegasus Knights. I think at least one of the units I think I dealt with okay. The other one possibly could have flanked me still, but chose not to. So let's have a look at some of the armies. We've got some vampire counts with this really interesting metallic bone colour. So these are very well painted. I described it as, we were talking, some of us that were assessing the armies as we were casting our votes, I described this as maybe the best looking army per brush stroke at the entire event. Which means that actually it's quite minimalist in some of the brush strokes, but they're positioned with such precision that it just looks ridiculously good. So definitely getting the most value out of each stroke here. Like you can see on like the knuckle there, it's just a couple of highlights I think, but it looks really good, and look at it from a distance as well. Very nice. Then we've got the most vibrant army, and if I see an army like this, it's always going to get one of my 2 votes for coolest army, because look at it. Bright colours, that's the kind of thing that grabs me. I especially like the Dragon Ogres here at the back. I think they're very cool. And this is another example of, when you get up close, you can see exactly how the highlighting is done here. So it's something that you could possibly imitate, because when you get in there, you can see where the lines are. I think the thing is, when you copy a highlighting style, if you're just a good artist to begin with, you know where the lines should go. It's like when you zoom in on like Golden Demon winners. Those are really the only level where you zoom all the way in and you think, yep, everything looks as it should do. With most armies, when you zoom in, you'll see like a white blob just in a seemingly random place. I don't know if this army has any, as an example. But when you zoom out, you'll think, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, is that a dot right there? It could just be actual shine on the model. Like that. So if that is natural shine, then that would be an example of a place where you would want a dot, because it just looks natural. Then we've got some very nicely painted dwarves that I've played against quite a few times. Very compact dwarf list. I think this one would have been a great, interesting matchup against mine. I feel like with my full gun line, that could give me the edge in this matchup though. because I've got more shooting and my opponent has got some points put into combat. And I don't know whether that unit would be significant in the game. So I think I would have the slight edge on it with the list I've got now. I've run other lists in the past that would definitely struggle against this, I think, though. But really, just really good paint jobs. And very clean. Especially like the white beards on that army. But you've heard me talk about this before. There's the dwarves that I faced in one of the rounds. We've got some Tomb Kings. There was a few Tomb Kings sprinkled throughout. A very nice casket there. Very nice bone highlighting you can see going on there. I do like the aesthetic of just pure skeleton without armour. Then we've got the very grotesque Wolves of the Sea that I played earlier as well. Slathered in blood and muck and mostly headless and weird gribbly goodness. I think they're some kind of 3D printed army, but I don't know where they're from. They're very nice anyway. Then we have got what's going on here. It's a dragon. So I've played against this army before, but it didn't have a dragon before. So this is a recent addition. So it's generally this big block of warriors and then another big block as well, which I think is chosen. And they get blasted across the table, flying 36 inches with a spell. But instead now there's a dragon that can do that as well. So the dragon was the one thing that was missing from this army before. So I don't know whether that's propelled that list further up the table than usual. I'll have to look at the final placings at some point. We've got some goblins with... Oh, by the way, before I'll go off that a second. If anyone's got a horrible case of arachnophobia, you should look away now, because there's a very realistic spider picture on the screen, which is coming up now. So, very hairy, disgusting spider, which is obviously ridiculously cool if you're not terrified of that sort of thing. And then loads of other spiders as well. And a foot of Gork. Very cool, very weird, very nice. And there's a close-up of the hideous spider, which is almost too realistic, terrifyingly realistic. And another spider, and there's the foot, and more spiders, and we're off the spiders now for anyone that was looking away. So we've got some wood elves, and obviously skirmishy goodness with the wood elves, very elusive and evasive. And we've got some more dwarves. So these are dwarves that we've seen. I haven't played against them before, but we've seen them in the the roundup of all the army shots before. Nice sprinkling of snow on there. And this is the army that belongs to a fellow dwarven YouTube sensation. And I believe the precise name of the channel is Dowie After Dark. So it's different from this channel. It's more overview and then like general videos on a specific topic rather than a full-on 2 or 3 hour tournament breakdown. So a good complement to my channel rather than direct competition, I would say. So you should check that out. We've got some Bretonnians. These are exiles, which is why they're allowed cannons. Filthy Bretonnian exile scum with no honour. Then we've got some honourable Bretonnians with very long flying stalks. Obviously, nice to see plenty of Bretonnians. They always look cool. More wood elves with some lovely dryads there, and a big dragon, which is very cool. Everyone seems to be using the Ionis Cryptborn dragon from Age of Sigmar in the old world, which makes sense because he's way more compact than some of the dragons from AOS. So you can actually fit him onto this smaller base. He's not a huge gargantuan thing, and is generic looking enough, so without too much work you can make him look like he belongs in most of the factions, I think. We've got some dwarf ghosts, controversial army. I think I've seen this one before as well. The controversial part of it is obviously, how do you feel about ghost armies? Do you think that looks cool and thematic, or do you think that's just a load of dry brushing, mate? Which way do you come down on that debate? Let me know. Because obviously I've got some ghosts in one of my armies, which is my undead halfling army for Kings of War. I've got some ghost chicken riders, if you've ever seen those, so I'm not totally opposed to the ghostly paint job. Then we've got more dwarves. These are the ones I faced in round 1 with the multiple small units, which a lot of the dwarf lists are going away from now, and I think it's because you just give up too many easy points with these small units. It's all about those big Death Stars now. So very cool paint jobs on them though. We've got some more Tomb Kings with some lovely Tomb Scorpions there. We have got some... Now, this is the spare player list. This is the Chaos list. It's not actually Chaos Dwarves. It's just Warriors of Chaos. Roll the initiative says Ghosts are cool. Okay. Good to know. We've got a Hell Cannon. We've got a Demon Prince. There are some level 4 spellcasters in here. So this was Rob's spare player list at the TSN arena, because someone couldn't make it to day 2, so he did have to pop in for a game. And then was able to rope in another spare player for the last round, so only had to play 1 round, as well as doing tournament admin. We've got some High Elves. Now, High Elves are one thing that usually terrify me, because they can take 2 big dragons in 2,000 points. This one's only got 1, so very friendly. But very nice looking paint jobs on these. This was one of my favourite looking. I think if I was to pick a favourite, I would pick the very colourful Tzeentch Beastmen list. But this is definitely cracking into the top few. Very nice paintwork on them. We've got some more Bretonnians. Always nice to see the individual colour schemes and heraldry on them all. That looks like... Is that a French flag there? Okay, we're on to the final round. Open battle. The way the table stands, my opponent or I probably have to win by a large margin if we want to win the tournament. We've got a chance of winning the event if we win big. And that also depends what happens on another table. But to give ourselves a really good chance, we have to win big. So, it's Dwarves again. 3 games against Dwarves in a 5-game tournament. And this is against... this is the player I was talking about earlier, who has the YouTube channel, and has won some events before with Dwarves. So, the inspiration for my larger Iron Drake unit was actually looking at some of his lists and thinking that could be the way to go. Not getting drawn in by the idea of having multiple Trollhammer torpedoes, just instead taking the big, strong units of Dwarves, the big Death Star units or the Death Lions that are just good for points denial. So, what is in this list? Let's have a look. We have got Iron Drakes. So we've got 18 Iron Drakes, pretty much the same as my unit, except these ones are drilled and they have the Rune of Courage instead of the Rune of Hesitation. They also, let's see, they also have the Trollhammer Torpedo and Cinderblast Bombs as well. We've got the Pony Carts, because this is Dwarf Royal Clans. In special units we have a Pony Cart and a Grudge Thrower, which is over here in the corner. So obviously I've got the edge on War Machines. So where is the meat in this list, you'll be asking? So, if we get to the core and the characters, you'll find the meat. So first of all, we've got the Anvil of Doom, which is right there. We've got a Runesmith with Master Rune of Grungni. The Runesmith is actually the BSB in this list, by the way. So Master Rune of Grungni and Rune of Battle on a Runesmith. And 3 runes of Spellbreaking, which is obviously irrelevant against my list. My runes of Spellbreaking are irrelevant as well, because, spoiler alert, I'm not going to be going near the enemy anvil. Then there is a King. There is a King on Shield Bearers with Master Rune of Smiting, Master Rune of Gromril, Rune of Preservation, Rune of the Furnace. So, he's got a ward save against flaming attacks. He is immune to multiple damage. He dishes out d6 wounds instead of 1, and he's got a 2-up save. And he's on Shield Bearers. So that is a beast of a character right there. Then, what else have we got? We've got in core 28 Longbeards, because this is Royal Clans, so you can take Longbeards as your core. They're drilled, they've got a champion with the Rune of Passage, so they've got move through cover. Standard Bearer with the Rune of Battle and Rune of Courage, and Stroller's Rune. So obviously, this is the Yeet and Greet. They are in marching column at the start of the game. They're going to move forward a bit, faster because of the Pony Cart. Then they move again, triple speed because of the marching column, and then the anvil does the yeeting part of it and lets them move again, at which point they probably go wider because they're right in front of you and they want more to fight you with. So, the yeet and greet. Do I have the tools to deal with that? Let's find out. So let's go back to the wide shot and talk about my strategy here. You'll see the Rangers have gone 31 Rangers wide, with a load of characters in there as well. So, the most ridiculous sight you'll see in Warhammer. So what's more ridiculous, actually? This line of 31 Rangers wide, or 2 skirmishing units intermingled with each other, which we saw in Game 2. So they all get cover. That might be a weirder sight. But there we go. A really long line of Rangers with my BSB, Runesmith, and my General right there. So, what am I thinking here? My deployment is entirely because I don't want the Anvil of Doom to shoot my good units. So I'm outside of 27 inches of the anvil, so its magic missile is useless. Doomseekers are just going to run in, try and get themselves killed, or what they also want to do, because I'm fully aware that this unit of 31 Rangers full of characters is not the ideal charge target for anybody, especially just one unit. Because even if you get like 10 or 12 wide by the time you get there, you're not going to kill all of them. Someone's going to get stuck in a challenge. You're going to have loads of attacks coming back at you, probably. And with those great weapons, they could do a job on those Longbeards and kill quite a lot of them. So I don't think this is the ideal target. You'd be much happier, probably, going after the Iron Drakes. The Standard Shoot's can be better, but the Standard Shoot doesn't reduce your fighting rank. So the Iron Drakes aren't going to hit back nearly as hard. So I think the ideal target would be the Iron Drakes. So if they show any signs of heading in this direction, I've got Doomseekers there, I've got Gyrocopter there, and I'm fully prepared to try and hold them up as much as possible. This Gyrocopter is purely to go and attack the enemy Grudge Thrower. That's his entire role in this game. And my Grudge Throwers, there's not a great deal they can do, because I didn't mention actually the Anvil of Doom has the Master Rune of Adamant, so it's toughness 10. So toughness 10 Anvil. Dropping rocks on it, not ideal. So I'm probably going to be dropping rocks into units or going for the enemy Grudge Thrower. And let me know what you think of this setup. So the ideal start for the enemy is going to be moving forward to here, moving forward again, Anvil moves again, and then they go really wide here, or they go really wide here, depending which way they want to go. My ideal start is that they move forward, fail to be conveyed by the anvil, and then everybody just starts blasting them to smithereens, and I kill loads of Longbeards, and they become a worthless unit before they've even reached me. At which point, they would probably bail and run away, because you would not want to get these expensive characters killed throwing them into 31 Rangers. That seems like a wild thing to do. However, what could happen if I were to kill all the Longbeards is that a character might be strangely confident charging in, because it could then issue a challenge. I could then accept it with like my BSB, but if you win and beat it by quite a lot, my static combat res isn't that high on the Rangers unit, because they're not close order, they don't have any ranks, they have a standard with the Rune of Battle. So you could potentially win combat purely in a challenge. And if you do challenge though, the chances of me accepting it with the BSB when I need him for my ward save and I need him for my +1, I don't know, because if I've accepted it with like a ranger champion, you would probably kill him and overkill as well. So that could be bad for my combat resolution. And there are 2 runes of battle in this unit, and they've got ranks. So potentially, well, they've got ranks now. If I whittled them all the way down to just heroes, then no. I've got my Iron Drakes deployed to counter the enemy Iron Drakes, because mine are on a hill, so my thinking is I'll get more shots than them. So overall, I should win that fight, is my thinking. However, it was ruled by the TO that when you're on a hill, the enemy can shoot at you with 2 ranks as well. Which I would have to check the rulebook, but I'll just take the word for it of the summit that was held, and the TO decreed that if you're on a hill, the enemy can shoot you with 2 ranks as well. So if that's wrong, someone let me know, preferably with a page reference. You can fire in 2 ranks on a hill, yes, but if the thing you're shooting at is on a hill, can you fire at it in 2 ranks? Because I always thought you couldn't. But it was decreed for this game that you can, so that's what we're going with. So that's why I felt confident in my Iron Drakes in the Iron Drake versus Iron Drake battle. Well, confident would be overstating it, because they probably won't kill each other, because they're both giving each other a 5+ ward save from all the flaming attacks. It doesn't say otherwise. Does it need to say otherwise? I don't know. It feels like the core rules would suggest that you can only shoot with your front rank. Can you shoot in 2 ranks against large targets, for example? I don't know. I'm not sure on that one either. And maybe I'll never know if I'm just running ridiculous lines all the time. So, Iron Drakes versus Iron Drakes, probably no one's going to die from that. The issue with this game is that what we want to do is win big. Because if we get small wins, we are not going to win the tournament, neither of us. We've got 0 chance of winning the tournament if we win small. To win big, my opponent needs to kill this unit of Rangers, probably. I need to kill the unit of Longbeards with the heroes in. So we need to kill these 2 units. So it seems inevitable that they're going to fight each other at some point. Who do you think's got the edge? Do you think it's Longbeards with great weapons and a really killy king, or do you think it's the really ridiculously long unit of great weapon wielding Rangers with a stand and shoot and with a Thane BSB? Both units have got a 5+ ward save. By the way, I'm fully aware that a lot of my Rangers are behind the woods, so they're not going to be able to shoot at the enemy as they approach, but I decided going in a long line was better because they could be right in front of me turn 1. So I'm not going to get that much time to shoot them anyway. I'd rather be set up for combat. And I also want to be out of range of the anvil. So I'm prepared for some of them just not being able to see right now. Let's see. You can shoot as in many ranks as you have versus large. Page 271. Ooh. Every rank can shoot a large target. Okay, that's good to know. In addition, any unit that is entirely on a hill can draw a line of sight across or through other units or models that are not themselves on a hill. Yes. But what about shooting up at units on a hill? We've got Vlad in the chat. Good evening. So, for anyone who's just popping in now, we're on one of the top tables in the final round with a dwarf off. So if one of us wins big, we've got a chance to win the event. If we win small, no chance at all. So we have to kill each other's Death Star or Death Line. So here we go. Round 1. Who is going to take the first turn? It's going to be the evil dwarves. So they move straight up. They do their vanguard move, they then move up in marching column, so this is how close they are already. If they get conveyed, they'll be even closer. The enemy Iron Drakes move up a bit as well. They're drilled also, which I don't usually put on my Iron Drakes because I'm not normally concerned about changing their ranks throughout the game. But it is something to consider. And so it's my turn 1 now. So the Doomseekers move up. They do not charge because I want to shoot this unit. Everyone is just going to pile everything I've got into these Longbeards and try and kill as many of them as possible. So we've got like the Machine Gun Thane, we've got the Iron Drakes, we've got all the crossbows that can see them. 1,000,000 shots coming in. And I think I kill about 4. So it's not a horrendous start. And then I've got 1 gyrocopter up there, so if the enemy doesn't do anything about it, I'm going to be able to charge the Grudge Thrower next turn, which is good odds. Gyrocopter should win that fight. The Doomseekers are really... they're positioned so that if the enemy decide that they're going to park themselves around here, then I could get the charge in first on them. If they get so close to me that I can't avoid them, I can decide whether I want to charge in with them, and then the 2 Doomseekers charging in as well, and hit them in some kind of big dwarf sandwich. We shall see. Into the enemy turn. And you can see, actually, that this big line, this big marching column, move forward, past the Doomseekers, but they do not get conveyed, so they're stuck in this position now. If they were conveyed, I believe my opponent was actually thinking about, I think just going wide, but also was thinking about specifically targeting the Iron Drakes first. He definitely told me he was thinking about going for them. Because I suppose if you kill the Iron Drakes, you're not that far away from the Rangers, because you do need to kill the Rangers to win big enough to win the event, definitely. So you can't just kill the Iron Drakes. So what am I going to do from this position? Because the enemy shooting doesn't do too much. Lose a couple of Iron Drakes. The Anvil can't really contribute. So what is my plan? I am going to attempt to charge with the Rangers into this enemy marching column. Because if I make that charge, they are not super wide. So I'm going to be able to hit them with a lot, not get hit back with that much. And we've also got these two Doomseekers that can join in as well. So I would have quite a lot of attacks going in against not much. I think if I pull this off, I think that unit is in serious danger. However, because I'm going through difficult terrain, even though I've got move through cover, I would still have to roll 2 decent numbers on the dice in order to make it. Because if I roll like a 1, I think that's the one you have to use. So I need to roll 2 4s to make it in there. Which means I'm also foregoing the ability to shoot that unit, which isn't that bad because most of the Rangers can't shoot them now anyway. And I actually think what my opponent was doing here, rather than necessarily going for the Iron Drakes, was also having the option of then charging into my Rangers, but with minimal stand and shoot, because they're all the way to one end, so they wouldn't get stand and shoot from all the guys at this end. Whereas if you go straight into the middle, there's loads of them standing and shooting at you, including the machine gun Thane. So, here we go, into my turn. If this manoeuvre comes off, I make that charge, I think we're in business. Here we go. Well, you can see that it does not come off. So I roll 1 less than what I needed to with the Rangers, so they don't make it with the charge. So they all, sadly, did not make it. The Doomseekers both made it in. One of them got killed, and the other one did not. And then, at the end of combat, the Doomseeker gave ground, and the enemy were then able to reform into this sort of position. So they're now a bit wider, and the fact that I charged them has now made it worse for me when they hit me. Let's see. Wouter says, is that Wouter or Wouter? Wouter? I would not have charged the Doomseeker, rather use them to prevent them from using drilled. That is definitely a valid idea. However, I think at this stage I was still thinking that my Doomseekers had the AP that they don't actually have. Although I have been treating them as having lower strength than they do for the entire event, so maybe they should have done something. I was thinking that I would just one-shot this unit, and it was my one chance to hit them unawares while they're in marching column, hit them with everything at once, and just do loads of damage. That was my thinking. But I definitely agree with you that if I just send the Rangers in, put a Doomseeker there, that prevents them from expanding too much. Which would obviously be great. So this is the situation we're in now, because the Rangers failed the charge. So that's definitely something to think about for next time. If there's an enemy unit with drilled, and you're going to charge them, think about, are you just gifting them an extra reform, which they can use to expand their ranks. So that's definitely something to consider. The Gyrocopter loses a wound against the Grudge Thrower, and loses combat, which is very depressing. The Iron Drake versus Iron Drake battle is going as expected, not much being accomplished there. You also potentially give them free combat res. While that is true, I feel like the Doomseekers are going to earn more combat res than they give away, generally. I'm hoping that they do more than 2 wounds. And they want to die as well, so it's a free chance to kill them and also kill some enemy Longbeards, was my thinking. But yeah, you do have to be careful multi-charging, particularly if you're putting in one thing that's really strong and another unit that's really weak, and the weak unit can be targeted for combat resolution. That is always something to think about. In this situation, I felt that that sandwich of Rangers and 2 Doomseekers would utterly obliterate so much of this unit. I think that the risk was worth taking, because if it had come off, I think that would have been amazing. So, into the enemy turn. And we do get a charge in. They can't actually expand very wide here, because of the angle they've got themselves at. My unit is all the way up to there, so they can only add 1 to this side. So they do make it in, they expand a little bit, and now we're fighting. So I kill 1 with the stand and shoot. Then the Anvil of Doom kills my Gyrocopter, because I was just within range of it now. And a couple of Iron Drakes drop in the Iron Drake off. So we have a challenge in the Longbeards versus Rangers epic mega battle, and they do not kill each other. Very embarrassing for both of them. So the Longbeards elect to use their hand weapons, and my opponent wasn't sure what kind of weapons to use, and chose to have the better save against my swing back. But the Rangers actually did well, and I actually get 11 combat res just from kills, I think. So I killed loads of Longbeards, and they barely killed any of mine. But they do have good static combat res. So I did win, but they were able to just give ground by passing the leadership test. So the fact that they took the leadership test means that if they'd failed that, there's a BSB in there. So my Rangers could have taken them out if they hadn't run very far. It would have been tricky. I wouldn't have been able to go straight forwards because I would have hit this. I would have had to, like, wheel after them, probably. Is that how that would work? Because I'm so ridiculously wide. And you can see that my Thane has taken 2 wounds, I think, from the enemy. The enemy king with the multi-wound, I think, rolled a d6, but only got 2 for the number of wounds. So that was good. Also, Burlock Daminson swung his weapon with his artillery dice to determine the strength, rolled a misfire, and punched himself in the face and took a wound, and did no damage to the enemy. So if he'd actually been able to kill a couple more Longbeards as well, that would have pushed me even more over the edge, and maybe they would have full-on fled. Because they must be getting pretty close to being half unit strength compared to me as well, because there's a lot of Rangers in here. So that was my... that was the enemy turn 3. So in my turn, this is what I'm setting up. I have to decide, because I chose not to go after the enemy in the last turn, because I think they want to be in combat. So why give them an extra turn of fighting? Because they're going to strike first, probably, because I've got great weapons. I just want to shoot them instead. So I want a turn of shooting them. They'll charge me, but it's less than 3 inches away, so it's not that exciting a charge. And I can pop out my machine gun Thane and shoot them as well. I can shoot them with all the Rangers that can see them. The Iron Drakes turn round to shoot them as well, with all of those Drake guns and a torpedo. So, I think I could kill every single Longbeard with all this shooting, and leave just the characters, at which point, do they even bother fighting? Does one of the characters charge in, like the King, and then just try and challenge one of my characters? I don't know. If my opponent watches this video, then I'm sure he'll let us know, or you could find out probably on his channel as well. What would you do in this situation, audience? If you have your Longbeards totally shot to death, and you're left with just heroes, would you charge into the Ranger block and try and win challenges to try and win the combat, or would you run away and preserve points at that stage and accept it's game over? Roll initiative says totally charge. Yeah, that's what we want to hear. Yes, so you just double down instead of trying to preserve the points. So, how many Longbeards am I going to kill in this situation? We've got the machine gun Thane, always hits on 3s, exploding into loads of shots. They do have the Anvil's buff on their armour at the moment, so they can reroll their saves, and I think they get +1, so they're on 3 up rerollable saves. Iron Drakes, obviously, and the Thane have got AP, naturally, and the crossbows have Armour Bane 4 from the Runesmith. We've also got extra Armour Bane on the Drake guns and the torpedo. The torpedo is just AP 3 naturally anyway. So, let's see how many Longbeards I can kill with my shooting. Well, the answer is somewhere in the region of 1 or 2. The Thane double wand his machine gun, and that's that. So 2 Longbeards from all that shooting. So we've got an entire Iron Drake block. We've got the Thane who just missed with both of his shots. And then we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 Rangers at point blank range with their crossbows, with the Runesmith giving them Armour Bane. All of that kills next to nothing. So, it's not a total disaster, because we've already shown that when the Rangers hit you, they can win the combat. So, if they charge into me again, who knows? Let's find out. But I think that was my second chance to just completely obliterate this unit. That did not go very well. The first one, obviously, was the charge that I failed with the rangers through the difficult terrain. So the odds were slightly against that one, but I think the upside to making that charge would have been huge. I think I would have totally kicked that unit's butt in combat against their marching column. And this turn, I think all this shooting, it was a really good chance. But the fact that the Thanes popped out, I did say to my opponent at the time, if he pops out and does nothing, he's just letting you anvil him to death. So we'll see if that happens. But I thought it's definitely worth the risk, I think. Getting all this shooting off into this one unit of Longbeards. I think that is a good situation to put yourself in. And you can't get down on dice rolls, because it is a dice game. So you look at the situations that you've set up for yourself in the game. And I think mostly, like, this is a good situation. If you travel to alternate universes, there are plenty of them where this goes much better and loads of those Longbeards die and make this unit an ineffective fighting machine. Roll Initiative says you can get down on dice rolls. Well, you can, but I don't. I tend not to look at games that way. Like, even if I have ridiculously good dice rolls, I'm not going to be jumping around the room celebrating, because it's just the dice. I didn't do it. I set up the cool move, and then the dice decides whether it works or not. So we both had one abysmal round here. My opponent had a very poor round hitting me with the Longbeards last time, and then I was able to hit back and do loads of damage and win the combat. And then this round, to try and strike at the heart of the Longbeards and seize the advantage even more, I wasn't able to do the damage there. So we both had a disastrous turn, one after the other. Also, looking back as well, the Rangers into the marching column charge earlier was obviously a risk, because on average, both the dice probably aren't going to be 4 up to make the charge. But I thought the upside was so high to doing that. But, like someone said, I should have also considered deploying the Doomseekers to block the drilled reforms. Okay, so let's do this. Next round. So charging in again. They're now full width. It might look like they've actually gained models here, but it's just because some of them are like unit fillers that actually contain more than one model. Like this balloon thing here is actually 4 models. So they go full width. And we're going to duke it out again. So they do lose a couple to the stand and shoot, though. And they're still somehow in range of the anvil. It's all the way over there, but because they had bounced back last turn, they actually bounced back into range of the anvil's enchantment, and I wasn't able to stop it. So, enemy grudge thrower lands on my grudge thrower, does 2 wounds to it. Enemy Iron Drakes. Shoot my Iron Drakes. Don't do too much. We've got a challenge again with the Ranger Champion and the Longbeard Champion, and this time the Ranger Champion, I think, dies this time. Yeah, he doesn't appear to be in there now. So I do score a few kills, though, but not too much, just a few. And these are my hit rolls. So, hitting on 4s, with all these dice for the Rangers, that many missed, and I got 7 hits. Out of, how many have we got here? So we've got another 7 there, another 7 there. So there's 23 of them. And I only got 7 hits. Missed with 16 on 4s. That's pretty bad. And then failed to wound with 2 of them as well. Didn't get any 6s, so didn't get any nice armor bane either. So this turn I just had really shocking combat rolls, which meant that I lost the combat and had to fall back in good order. And the enemy then pursue, obviously. You can see my BSB has been killed this time as well by the enemy king. So we're taking it in turns. Well, kind of. I've had 2 poor moments in a row now. My opponent had 1 really poor round. I've now had 2. Okay, so the Doomseeker. This one charges into the Iron Drakes, does nothing, and loses combat. So again, this is a situation where I forgot that I should be strength 5 rather than 4. Over here, the Runesmith and the Rangers are getting killed, and then because I have to fall back in good order, because the old world is just admittedly a really dumb game at times, like the fact the lines exist is just dumb anyway, but also you have weird things like this. So centre of unit to centre of unit, I fall back in good order in that direction, not straight backwards. So because I have to, like, pivot round to fall back in good order, this corner touches the edge of the table and they die. So obviously a complete nonsense, but we know what the old world is. It is just weird. So that is a situation that does happen. But because the enemy were fighting mostly on this side and I was fighting more on this side, we were kind of skewed from the start of the combat, really. Then something like that, theoretically, could always happen. So, if I'd won combat as well, and they'd been forced to fall back in good order, the same thing would have happened to them, because they would have had to pivot round this way, and they would have touched the edge and died as well. So very weird. Let's see, roll the initiative. When you roll poorly, though, then why do people blame you? Do people blame you if you roll poorly? I know people do get very angry at dice rolls. I just can't relate to it at all. If there's a cash prize and it's your livelihood, then I can totally understand bemoaning bad luck. I can't understand it in wargaming. I just can't relate to people that just become miserable and grumpy as a result of their dice. Just can't relate to it at all. I've had some abysmal dice rolls at events in the past, and I just can't fathom becoming that down on the dice at all. Like, you've made the moves, it doesn't matter at the end of the day whether you win or lose. You're trying to win, but whether the dice then let you take that final step is out of your hands. So you couldn't do more. It's like, what's the line from Captain Picard? Like, you can commit no mistakes and still lose. Like, that is life. Something like that, isn't it? And you can both commit mistakes in the game, and one of you's still going to win. So, Ed loves how random your rolls are, but mostly bad. Yeah, some people, it seems, are cursed with their dice to some degree, but I think it's mostly exaggerated. I think a lot of people that say they've got bad luck with the dice, actually, they put themselves in positions where a bad dice roll costs them a game, rather than putting themselves in a position where a good dice roll wins them a game. And there is a difference between those two things. Roll the initiative. That's what separates great opponents from not so great ones. Yeah, generally, I haven't come across that many people that become really grumpy and angry at the game or their opponent in the history of my wargaming. You'll get people that just look really depressed at times. I still remember the first Warhammer event I went to at Adepticon, a decade ago. One of the players I was facing just went into a deep depression as soon as he saw my army list because it was dwarves with war machines. So, and I didn't intentionally throw the game as such, but we were nowhere near winning the event at that point, so I made some fun moves, like charging in with units that were totally unnecessary, just to make the game more exciting and more fun, because neither of us were anywhere near winning from that point. Roll the initiative says, yesterday I rolled 7 miscasts in a tournament. Yeah, the one game where you have a really good tangible tracker for your luck is probably Kings of War, because no matter how badly you kill a unit, if you roll a double one, they live. So, you can, if you count how many double ones you get in a game of Kings of War, you've got a good idea how terrible your luck was. And weirdly enough, the most double ones I ever had in a game was something like 7, but it was a game I actually won. Because when you're attacking and killing units, you're rolling a lot of those tests, so you're more likely to roll more failures on it. Okay, into turn 5 for the evil dwarves. So, my Iron Drakes are being charged by the Longbeards, and I managed to kill 6 of them with the stand and shoot, so that's really good. So in they go, and it looks like this unit isn't getting any smaller, but it's because there's so many of them to start with, and there is the King on Shield Bearers there who's taking up a big space as well. The enemy Iron Drakes also rear charge. Okay, so we've got a challenge on. The Iron Drake champion against the Longbeard champion, who's already killed the Ranger champion, and he kills this one as well. So I lose some Iron Drakes, lose combat, but they're stubborn Iron Drakes, and they're not all dead, so they fall back in good order through the enemy, away from the highest unit strength enemy, and take a couple more casualties from the perilous path of running away through an enemy unit. Nigel says, avoided Oh, must have made a spelling mistake because the comments disappeared, and now you get called out for it because I was already in the middle of reading it out. So yes, it was a dwarf sandwich, but the Iron Drakes survive a round because they're stubborn. So you can always rely on them to do that because they've got good armour, and they're stubborn, and they've got good weapon skill and strength, so they can do alright in combat, the Iron Drakes. But obviously this situation is definitely lost now. So it's definitely going to be a lost game. How can I bring the score as close as possible? Because I need to kill some Longbeards. That's how I do it, so I actually score some points. So my turn. The grudge thrower blows itself up by rolling 2 misfires in a row, and then rolling a 1 on the misfire table. So it's essentially rolling 3 1s back to back to blow up, because it had the rune of forging and explodes. Well, what can you do about that? And then the Iron Drakes, obviously, they were followed up by this unit, but we just didn't bother turning them around, so they get killed in combat. And the other grudge thrower does not manage to kill the enemy grudge thrower. So, it's not looking great, but I can still get some points for that thing if I can kill it by the end of the game, which I can't. So, we work out, and considering the amount of attacks I had that were just total failures into the Longbeards, I needed to kill 1 more of them to score any points. So that puts me on 0 victory points for the game, despite obliterating this unit over the course of many turns. There's barely any of them left, but just enough to be 25%, so I had to kill 1 more to score points. So I'm on 0. So let's put that into context here. I charged into the grudge thrower with a gyrocopter, and that thing's still kicking. My grudge thrower that was never attacked by anybody blew itself up. Oh yeah, Burlock Daminson, my general, in that big combat that I ended up ultimately losing and then falling back. He killed himself. The enemy did not wound him during the game. He killed himself twice. So he rolls an artillery dice to determine his strength. The one time he was allowed to hit the enemy, he rolled a 2, so he was strength 2. And both of the times he attacked, he rolled a misfire and then killed himself. Which is hilarious, admittedly, and it's a good enough reason to keep using him. Because the ignoring long-range modifiers on shooting is quite a big deal. And he's only 85 points. So leadership 10 as well, the cheapest source of leadership 10 in the list. So I think Burlock Daminson is amazing. He's just hilariously bad when he kills himself, like most units are. So the grudge thrower killed itself, the general killed himself, and yeah, there were 2 moments in that game where I felt I've got a good chance of winning this. And then my opponent would have been feeling that in a couple of moments as well, would have been feeling that there were a couple of moments where he could win the game and it didn't go his way. It was a little bit back and forth for a bit there, and then ultimately it was going to be down to the first person to have a really good round was going to win the game, because it was Death Star versus Death Line, and I had a good round, but just not good enough to kill the enemy, and then I followed that up with 2 really abysmally poor rounds. And the enemy had 1 shockingly bad round, but did just enough to not die, and then followed that up with some better rounds after that and was able to kill me. So, very good game. Dwarf combat in big, huge, long lines, the way Warhammer was designed to be played. How do we feel about Linehammer then? Do we think it's a total nonsense and you should be shunned by the community for using it? Do you think you should be shunned by the community for using anything in the old world these days? Is there anything out there in the game that you think, you see that on the table and you think, my opponent is just the scum of the earth, I lose respect for you immediately? Is there anything you can take that makes you think that about someone? Roll initiative, Linehammer is awful. It certainly is. It's total nonsense and it should not be in the game. Linehammer should not exist. Infantry just needs fixing so they actually have a role. Because Linehammer is the only thing that gives most of the infantry in the game, I think, a role. They don't have a role if all they do is be 5 wide and die. Because they're not going to get the charge in, generally, because you're up against a lot of cavalry. You're going to get hit first, you're going to lose the front rank, and then die. And that's not fun for anybody. Might be fun for the cavalry player. If you go 100 wide, if I just take a unit of 100 rangers, I don't know how many points that would be, but you could probably do that. Take 100 rangers, just super wide, and the enemy charges in, kills 10, you get 90 attacks back. It's complete garbage and nonsense, but it makes them more effective. So, how do we feel about that? It is a weird game. Get rid of lines, change the rules, stop them being used, but also make infantry useful at the same time. You have to give them something to do on the table. Put objectives on the table that infantry are better at holding. Put the emphasis on infantry being more of an anvil So you want to go ranks and you want to build up your combat res rather than going wide to hit people. And you'd see things like Iron Breakers and Shield Dwarf Warriors making a bit of a comeback. Have some benefit to keeping them alive longer. But generally, you stay alive longer if you kill the enemy. So if you're 100 wide and you attack back with 90 dice, you're going to live longer just because you've killed the enemy. So it's a weird situation. There's a lot of things in this game I would like to change, and hopefully some of those things are going to be addressed in the new year. Let's see, Roll the Initiative says, we're doing banners can capture terrain pieces at game end for 150 points. That's not a bad idea. That's kind of cool. And terrain as objectives, yeah, that's a simple way of doing it as well. And if you have to capture it in the same way as you do the command and control scenario, so if you have unit strength 5 there and the enemy doesn't, you take it. So if you've brought big infantry blocks, you're more likely to hold those things than small cavalry units would, because you're going to be chipping away and you just have to kill one of them. Or actually, some of the cavalry might be unit strength 2 per model. So maybe tweak it a bit to give infantry some kind of edge. And yeah, so little things like that people are trying out. We'll see what makes it into the update. And we'll see what gets house ruled after the update. You'd want to play it raw for a while, untarnished by corruption, and then see how that feels, and then TOs will obviously make their own choices on how they want to amend the game. I would like to see an old world event that uses scenarios in the same way Kings of War does. So objective scenarios, territory scenarios, so you have to hold areas of the table, hold objectives, or you have to carry tokens around on units, is a really interesting one that Kings of War does. Because if you're carrying a token, it slows you down, and you have to be holding them at the end of the game. So you can't just put them all on your big flyer, because you're going to be creeping along very slowly. So things like that coming into the game I think would be good. But at the moment it is just, is your army better than the enemy's army? And you have a much better chance of winning if it is. If they change it so that you have to actually interact more with the battlefield and not just your opponent's army for objective purposes, then it becomes not only a match of whose army is better, but also whose army is better equipped to win a scenario. So that does level the playing field a bit, if you feel like you're outmatched in the list building phase. Roll the Initiative. It's a great game that has silly interactions. Yes, the old world is a great game and has lots of silly things in it that they will hopefully iron out over time. I don't want to use Linehammer, but the mission statement for this tournament was that I wanted to give myself the best chance of winning games as possible, and that obviously came true because I was on one of the top tables in the final round for the first time. So that should teach you that there is some merit in that kind of list. I think this list that I had is strong. I think it's got good points denial, really good gun line. You don't really want to charge into those units in the front because you take a lot of stand and shoot, unless you can wrangle your way out of that somehow. If you have the ultimate tough Death Star of Doom that's got 1,000,000 saves, like the Skin Wolves, that was the one thing where I felt I have no chance against this. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do against this unit. So that was the one thing where I felt like that. Against this list here with the Dwarf Death Star, obviously I had some good chances to try and win this game, and could have gone either way at various points. Obviously my opponent was using some sneaky manoeuvring to go around here, like to limit my stand and shoot, which is obviously a good play, and that helped keep them alive because I was firing at them with less shots. So there's still some interplay with these two lists that just had this one massive unit that we had to kill. I can report on the result of the event, but I actually won't, because I told you about my opponent's YouTube channel as well, so he'll probably tell you on there where he was able to finish after this game. I'll tell you where I finished in the table. So let's have a look. So out of 24 players, disappointingly, I was knocked down to 9th place at the end, after contesting in the top tables right at the end there. But scoring 0 victory points in the final game because I couldn't kill one more Longbeard is obviously a contributing factor to that. So I could have maybe killed... Well, obviously, I should have killed the Longbeards. Probably not the heroes. Should have killed all the Longbeards, though, with the amount of shooting I put into them and the amount of attacks I put into them that were a colossal failure. But the heroes, probably not. Like the king, I don't see how I was going to get through him. He was very tough. So I was never going to get the points for him. The grudge thrower, probably should have killed that at some point. I was never really trying to kill the anvil because it's toughness 10, so I just didn't bother. The pony cart, I don't think I ever really aimed anything at that. So possibly could have done. So I didn't get tabled anyway. We've still got a grudge thrower alive. And that's the important thing at the end of the day, isn't it? So we've got multiple dwarf lists at this event. And let's see how high they all finished. So we've got quite a few in the top 10. How many have we got in the top 10? 1, 2, 3. 3 dwarf players in the top 10. And then we've got some more further down. Yeah, but 3 in the top 10 I think is pretty good. We'll take that. Who else have we got in the top 10? We've got the Wolves of the Sea, that very strong list, which did actually lose a game at this event. I don't know who that was against. That must have been some pretty spicy list. We've also got some High Elves in there. Some Beastmen, which isn't a surprise, especially if it is the double Viletide list. That's very good. There's some Bretonnians in there as well, and some Vampire counts. So a nice mix in the top 10. Good performance by various dwarven lists. Very happy with how this went. At the end of the day, the final position in the rankings doesn't really mean anything. In Old World, there isn't an official league table leaderboard where your rankings go into yet, which apparently there will be at some point. So it doesn't really matter where you finish. It's all about going for glory, trying to win, and if you don't, just try and make the cool moves that give you a chance of winning, and then learn what you could do differently next time and try and apply that. So, next time, what am I going to do? I'm going to change my Doomseekers, because giving them all those +1s, or +1 to initiative, or striking first is useless, because you're giving away their AP, which you want. So, I'm thinking a very similar list for next time, but tooling up the Doomseekers up to the eyeballs with things like denying armor saves or doing extra damage, just making them really scary, but also expensive. So where would I drop points to fit those in? I could, well obviously the runes they have at the moment can be dropped, because I didn't like those. So we can take those runes off. I can't drop any of my rangers because they're the entire core, and that's minimum core allowance. So I could drop out some Iron Drakes, or I could drop out some runes. Or a Gyrocopter. I don't know, I kind of like the 2 Gyrocopters. I think they did mostly a good job. Maybe not in this game, because obviously one of them lost against Grudge Thrower crew in close combat, which isn't ideal. But in general, I like the list. I like the list archetype. And until the rules change so that Linehammer is a bad idea, I think this is the way to go, sadly. Okay, let's wrap this video up then. So there is your thumbnail with some beautiful lines. The meta was not totally busted by the Linehammer, but we gave it a good go. And I did have to face 3 dwarven adversaries, which is sad. Would have preferred to kick the butt of the other factions instead of our cousins. So, let me know what you think in the comments. If you've got any rules comments as well, or any rules questions, if there's anything you think was unclear in the video, if anything that you think was played incorrectly, let's have a discussion about that. If you're going to point out a rule that was done wrong, that you know for a fact, kindly drop a page reference in there as well. And don't forget to check out all the links in the description. There's various social media shenanigans. And if you think that this is a valuable resource, if you think 3-hour analysis of tournament games is something that you need in your life and you want more of them, then why not pledge all or a portion of your life savings to the Patreon or the PayPal links down below, and that'll get me more tournament tickets. Is really where all my money goes nowadays. More tournament tickets, more dwarves probably on made to order when they pop up, and maybe that new dwarf engineer when he comes out as well. But really, it's just all my disposable income is going on tournament tickets and the armies to use in them. I don't really do anything else with my free time at the moment except exercise and painting and gaming. The 3 staples. But there's also, in the description down there, there is a Discord server. There is a Facebook group if you want to keep an eye on all the stuff I'm doing in there. There is a Twitter, and I just joined Blue Sky as well, which is apparently the new big thing. So I'll have to put a link to that as well in there. Or you could just type in Andy2D6 on there and I'll probably pop up. Other than that, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We've had a nice, solid audience throughout. And I'm going to probably go and play some Vermintide 2, I think, because they just added Versus mode, which is very exciting, and I haven't played any PC games for a couple of weeks because I've been too busy painting, so I might have a bit of that to close out the evening before I have to go to bed. Well, all that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.